Okay, let's start the meeting.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. Monday, April 4th, general session of the Town Trustees, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to call the roll.
Scott Howard, President.
Present?
William Pell, I'm present. Edward J. Warner Jr.
Present.
Ann Walker.
Here.
And William Parrish.
Present.
Okay.
Everyone's here.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee. Thank you. Just for the public's information, the next work session will be Monday, April 18th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. and our regular meeting will be the same day at 1 p.m. here at Town Hall. We do have some minutes acceptance for the regular meeting, March 21st, 2022.
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Warner. Are we all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Some communications that came in that you have in your boxes or emails that you could read. We have some,
You want to address this one?
you wanna, is it on for a discussion or it's not on for a
No,
discussion?
no,
It's just
it's not.
on as a communication.
That's
so-
it. Yeah.
You want to waive it, being that we all have...
Yeah, if you want to waive
waive
the
that
reading
one.
of communications based on the fact you've all gotten notification. We can discuss it later date.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we do have some discussions on. First discussion is the Sag Pond update. We have Dr. Chris Gobler here, and I'd like you to come on up, and
Okay, I have some slides.
you do have slides.
All right.
If you're comfortable there, that's fine. If you're comfortable here, wherever you're
You have to
comfortable.
sign in, Chris.
Oh, okay. Will do.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you guys. It's been a bit. Okay.
Chris, you can use this to change
Oh, wonderful.
slides, James.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. It's nice to see everybody. And I appreciate the opportunity. I'll try to move quickly. I know there's a lot to do. Just as a reminder, however, actually, Trustee Welker, would you like to just give a quick overview of and we kind of have a joint project between the trustees and myself and on Sag Pond. Do you want to give a quick narrative of that, your own version?
Sure, and then you can feel free to tag team.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know that CPF monies were appropriated on behalf of the trustees and in partnership with Peconic Land Trust, because money was also raised by the Land Trust, and work has been done on multiple fronts with Sag Pond. The trustees are, of course, interested in the water quality as it pertains to cut openings, and Dr. Gobler has done significant work to that end with telemetry buoys and many other projects. At the same time, there has been work with Peconic Land Trust on that front. So we've really done a public-private partnership to that front, and perhaps you'd like to expand on that a bit.
Yeah, and the Peconic Land Trust I see is sort of, is well connected with the community, is also sponsoring programs with Cornell to look at groundwater, for example. And so the support's coming from the town, but also there's been private support as well to sort of look at overall what's happening at Sag Pond, what are the problems, and potentially what are some of the solutions. I've been studying Sag Pond going back at least a decade, and the first time being when someone said, "The pond is green, why is that?" And the discovery, as you'll shortly see, of toxic blue-green algae within the pond. So I'm going to go quickly. Obviously, I'm here to inform, so I encourage interruptions if something's not clear. So just acknowledging my lab group and everybody who really are the ones there in Sag Pond getting the data and helping to understand how the system runs and works, all within the Gobler Laboratory. So, the big issue here, of course, is that Sag Pond is surrounded by a pretty complex watershed. This isn't exactly Sag Pond, but it's a little idealistic, but it is the case in that you've got agriculture, you've got homes, you've got surface runoff all going into the pond, and it's never a good idea to presume you understand exactly how an ecosystem is functioning before getting data, because I can tell you that within probably 10 miles of here, I can point you to an ecosystem where agriculture is the most dominant form of nitrogen, and within another 10 miles, maybe it's wastewater, and another 10 miles, maybe it's the atmosphere. So we need data in order to really understand how any given ecosystem is working. And literally, I can just give us an example. You can take, for example, Georgia Pond and Wainscott Pond. They're in East Hampton, but right next to each other, totally different sources of nitrogen. And a priori, I had no idea until we collected the data and made the discovery. So it's important to have data in order to support any management plan. This, of course, comes in the overarching era we live in, where we're recognizing that changes in population affects our groundwater. And so these are overall trends for Suffolk County, but they're probably even more acute for the South Fork, where the development happened a little bit later. And we know that the high nitrogen that is accumulating in groundwater is both a human health issue. Nitrate at high enough levels is dangerous to humans. And whatever we don't extract for drinking water on the South Fork discharges into coastal waters and affects the ecosystems, as you'll see in this presentation. And there's no shortage of places across the South Fork or all of Long Island where high levels of nitrogen are translating into either harmful algal blooms or low oxygen zones, and that's what's being shown by this map here. So overall, over the last several years, we've been monitoring Sag Pond to look at overall water quality. We're trying to understand what is the element that's promoting the overgrowth of algae in Sag Pond. We're assessing where the nitrogen and phosphorus is coming from in Sag Pond, and we're also looking at filter feeding bivalves, specifically oysters. As Trustee Welker mentioned, we've established within the pond a telemeter water quality monitoring station, similar to the one that you see here, solar powered in the water, collecting data 24/7 through the summer. That data is telemetered to a website. We don't have the buoy in this year, but once it goes in, you can go to that website, and anyone who's interested can pull down the up-to-the-minute information, as well as get any information from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And so, for example, I'm reviewing now last summer's deployment and just a snapshot of it. Of course, we all know how important opening and closing the cut is, so I pulled this out specifically because it highlights that. This is just the level of salinity in Sag Pond. So Sag Pond is one of 3 estuaries on the south shore of Long Island that is what we'd call a temporarily open estuary. It's opened to the ocean for part of the year and closed to the ocean for the other parts of the year. The other 2, of course, being Mecox and Georgia Pond. So you can see here it with salinity dropping through the summer up until August, indicating that there's a continuous flow of fresh water that dilutes the salinity. You can see there was a cut opening on August 17th that successfully rose that salinity all the way up. You can see to 15 parts per thousand, but it didn't last long, right? You can see it was not what we'd call a successful cut opening. That cut then closed, and you can see thereafter how quickly the system begins to revert to a closer to freshwater state. And that's what you're fighting against all the time with Sag Pond, as well as Mecox. Of course, I don't need to tell you that, but it's just good to be able to see that in action. Another thing we look very carefully at in Sag Pond are levels of dissolved oxygen. All life outside of some bacteria need oxygen to persist. This data looks messy, but it's actually exactly what you see during summer. The wiggle in this data are day-night cycles, and what I've put in there is the absolute minimum dissolved oxygen threshold the DEC sets for dissolved oxygen. And what you can see is that in late summer, in fact, the further you get into summer and fall, the lower those oxygen levels get. And you can see further that once you get into September, there are excursions literally to 0 oxygen in the pond by late summer. So that's problematic, particularly if you're trying to, for example, raise oysters. They need oxygen. And you can't quite see it, but there is, well, I won't go into the wiggle room there, but you can see the overall pattern, however. And so the oxygen is definitely a concern within Sag Pond. The other big concern are blue-green algae, also known as freshwater cyanobacteria. I'm just showing some microscopic images of them here. We worry about these because they are a public health threat. They can make toxins that are either gastrointestinal or neurological, and those, when they were first discovered, had names like literally fast death factor and very fast death factor, because when consumed, they can be responsible for things, for example, like cancer. Thankfully, nobody's drinking Sag Pond or our surface waters on Long Island, but when people do, that can be an issue. It's also an issue for pets. The CDC has outlined hundreds of dog poisonings over the recent decades due to cyanotoxins from these blue-green algae. We've had, certainly on the South Fork, pet deaths and illnesses from consuming water, so that's a real threat. And there even was an incident just 2 years ago that the scientists are just now really decoding, literally of elephants, some of the largest terrestrial mammals on the planet, or the largest terrestrial mammals on the planet, expiring from consuming water contaminated with these cyanotoxins. So it certainly is a serious issue. And it's been a persistent issue in Sag Pond. This is, again, the data from the buoy, looking at the dynamics of the blue-green algae. These blue-green algae like high levels of nutrients, and they like warm temperatures. And so what you can see is actually a fairly consistent pattern of these levels intensifying through the summer. This is the buoy. We make even more careful measurements, what we call discrete measurements, on a weekly basis as part of this project, starting in spring and persisting all the way into fall. Like dissolved oxygen, the DEC also has a threshold for the levels of blue-green algae above 20 to 25 micrograms per liter. They will close a water body to use, and I think we're all aware of that, and usually they'll inform the trustees. And so you can see Sag Pond got above that level in late summer. I have the red circle around the point where actually the opening of the cut reduced the intensity of this event. Had this cut stayed open, based on things I've observed in places like Georgia Pond, the event would have probably entirely washed out. But again, it was only open for a short period of time. I have some names up there in Latin, that things like Anabena, Aphanizomenon, Microcystis, and Planktothrix. These are different genera of blue-green algae, all of which can make toxins, and were all present last summer. And so, again, this slide just tells you some of the other genera we found there in the past. We did measure 1.2 micrograms per liter of microcystin in Sag Pond last summer during that event. For reference, the U.S. EPA has set a drinking water standard for microcystin of 0.3 micrograms per liter. Now, again, in good news, nobody's drinking Sag Pond. But in bad news, sometimes you get these blue-green algae blooms, and you can say, well, there's no toxins involved. Well, that's not the case here. And in fact, this is a level that's a little bit higher than we used to see, and just based on other systems that I've monitored, for example, Wainscott Pond, sometimes over time, the intensity of both the blooms and the toxicity can ramp up. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. Okay, so this is actually Lake Agawam. But the question is, why do we, which of the elements, nitrogen or phosphorus, are driving these events? If I were to be speaking to you, maybe even just 2 decades ago, but certainly 3 or 4 decades ago, any scientist in the country would say, oh yeah, well of course this is a phosphorus-driven event. But there's sort of been an awakening among scientists during the past several decades that actually the further south you get in North America, the more likely it is that nitrogen might be driving this event. And that's because some of the conclusions earlier made about these events were made on lakes in the very northern part of Canada. We now recognize that that's not really reflective of what's going on here. I'm not going to wax poetic on this. I'll just show you some data. We conducted experiments where we collected water. We amend that water with either nitrogen or phosphorus or both compounds to see how does the pond respond. And here's the answer. So what you're looking at, those 4 bars are an experiment done in triplicate, looking at water that's unamended, water amended with nitrogen, water amended with phosphorus, or water amended with nitrogen and phosphorus. So what you can see, a strong response to nitrogen, almost no response to phosphorus on its own, and maybe a little bit of a combined effect, but really nitrogen being the most important compound affecting the blue-green algae here. And so that's not based on hypothesis, that's actually based on data collection from Sag Pond, which is very, very important. The next question is to then figure out if nitrogen is what's causing these problems, where is that coming from? And so we did a study to understand this. The study we did, frankly, was the most comprehensive ever done for Sag Pond. Suffolk County did just complete its sub-watershed study, which was very, very comprehensive, but one thing it did not consider is specifically sediments. And of course, when you get into a shallow water body like Sag Pond or any of our lakes and ponds, the sediments can become very, very important. And you really need to understand the relative contribution there, because if you're not, you may be going after something that's not the most important source of nutrients. And certainly we've learned that over and over again, places like Lake Agawam and elsewhere. So we did do some comprehensive sediment surveying. What you're looking at here is a GIS plot of the depth of the mud within Sag Pond, which essentially is showing you that, and it's intuitive when you look at it, the southern part of the pond is not muddy at all. In fact, they're just mainly sands, and that's because when it's open, it's exchanging with the ocean. But when you get up into the neck, it's a very, very muddy area. You can see almost 3 feet worth of mud going up through there. And the same thing, very similar pattern here with the amount of organic matter, which trends with the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus you see in those sediments. So a low organic matter on the south, but very rich up in the neck of Sag Pond. Cutting to the chase of where the nitrogen is coming from, here is the comprehensive nitrogen budget. And you can see it's actually, in some ways, even different from the other ones we've done across the South Fork. So every ecosystem is different. The upshot being is that you have near equal contribution between agriculture and on-site wastewater, specifically cesspools and septic systems. Again, we looked at benthic fluxes, which sometimes is the biggest source. Not the case here, but it's certainly in the mix. And so certainly addressing, of all these, certainly if you're looking to reduce nitrogen, addressing fertilizer, whether it's from ag or residential, is important, and addressing septics will also be important.
Hey, Chris,
Yes.
on the ag, you separate the home fertilizer from the farm fertilizer?
Yes, residential lawns is at 15%. So it's actually, so that is specifically agricultural use of fertilizer. Yeah. A singular caveat here is that this budget will probably be updated again. I mentioned the Peconic Land Trust. They're always working with the different farmers within the watershed, and so we're always refining this. And I will say that when we run these sorts of models, they're specific to the crop type, and even can be specific to crop cover in a given area. So we're always, and that's the wonderful thing about having this model. Now that we have this model, we can go back and look at it at any time we want. And if there's a corrective action made, mitigation, for example, we can rerun the model and see what it looks like thereafter.
Is that the fertilizer coming off the surface or coming through the ground?
So this is a groundwater-based model, and so we do, so the idea is it's what goes to ground for the most part, yeah.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. Speaking of groundwater, we also collected all of the data available from Suffolk County to look at the levels of nitrogen in the groundwater around the watershed. This is a little bit of a weird-looking map. The way to best get your head around is first find Sag Pond, and you can see it's just about above where it says Atlantic Ocean. So now you're looking at the watershed. There's it looks like two big pieces cut out of the watershed, and that's true, and that's because those are public supply wells, right? So those are wells that are, and so this is the nitrogen that's flowing into Sag Pond. And so if the water is being drawn from there, that means that water is not making it into Sag Pond. And so the big sort of donut holes in the watershed are from that. But the upshot is, if you look at this plot, there are some very high levels of nitrate. You can see to the northwest of the pond and then further north beyond that. And that's, again, associated, usually when you see that, it's associated with agriculture. And I know that, and again, Ron Paulson and Molly Graffam, former PhD student for Sternberg University, are doing even more follow-up work, and now not just looking at the nitrogen in the watershed, but understanding how it's percolating into the pond. Okay, just a quick mention about the septic tanks. Again, it's about a quarter of the nitrogen load, and that's because it's a totally unsewered watershed, of course, and we know there's very high levels of nitrogen coming out of those septic tanks. Again, I already mentioned Suffolk County Sub-Watershed Study. When they did an examination of that study, you can see in the upper right, it says ecological sensitivity rank. right? 1. So that means that this is, in their study, and this study was incredibly comprehensive, they put Sag Pond as the highest rank, the highest priority for mitigating nitrogen wastewater. And if you look at the lower left, if you can see that number, it says 13 and then 63%, they're calling for a 63% reduction in the amount of nitrogen going into the pond. And then if you look at the upper left, that pie chart, what you see is actually a conclusion very consistent with my study. And it's saying that wastewater, they put it a little bit more on the wastewater side, but remember they didn't consider sediments. But what they're saying is that the two biggest sources of nitrogen are fertilizer and wastewater, and it tends a little bit more towards fertilizer, consistent with what we found in our study. Bottom line is, independent study done 2 different ways, coming to essentially the same conclusion. There's too much nitrogen, it needs to be reduced, in this case they're saying by 63%, and a very large portion of it's coming from wastewater. So just very quickly, this is not of great concern here, but Suffolk County has a plan for doing that. So does Stony Brook University, and I think I'm just going to click through these. We have an on-site system that's working very, very well based on just sand and wood chips. We've published on it. It reduces up to 90% of the nitrogen, also organic contaminants, and it's performing in the red there as good as any system that's on the market available in Suffolk County, and they'll be available for public installs later this year. And we're also looking to partner with the Peconic Land Trust to actually have an individual to help upgrade the watershed. There's been almost no upgrades whatsoever in that watershed. And at the Center for Clean Water Technology, which I also direct at the university, what we've begun to recognize is some of the on-site innovative and advanced septic systems people are installing sometimes perform great, but sometimes don't. And in some cases, it's not. There could be more oversight and more careful planning to get a more optimal outcome. And so we think that can be done here in such a way that an individual, as far as choosing the right system for a given property, making sure it's as protective of the environment as possible, and then testing each individual system to make sure that the outflow is optimal. If it's not, then to go back and insist that the system be remedied in order to get the best protection for the ecosystem. And also, it's a complex process for getting these installs done, and we think we can help smooth that out. The last thing I'll talk about is oysters, which of course is near and dear to the hearts of this governing body here. And the reason we're interested in oysters, of course, is because of Mecox Bay, which of course A is right next to Sag Pond, and B is probably the most productive wild oyster population on the South Fork, and some could argue on the whole entire South Shore of Long Island. And of course we know why oysters are important with regards to controlling harmful algal blooms, improving water clarity, having other ecosystem benefits. So we've had 2 years of study putting out oysters in Sag Pond in different locations. Essentially we've been putting oysters out in cages and assessing their growth, their survival, and the presence of disease. In 2020 we had cages both far to the north and also some in the south. In 2021 we did a study just in the south. And so the first deployment again being in 2020, where we put out 2 different age individuals, ones that were spawned in 2020 and ones that were spawned in 2019. And whereas in 2021 we did that first year, but we also did spat on shell, something Greg Rivera is very familiar with and has led the charge on here on Long Island. So instead of having individual oysters, rather oysters on shell that are put out. So looking at 2020, the survival, just being frank, was not great, particularly in the northern end of the pond. Now the northern end of the pond problem was twofold. It was both the conditions, but frankly there just seemed to be a lot of very curious onlookers there. And so we would go back to find our cage, pulled out of the water, and the oysters were sitting on the side of the road. That happened again and again. We went out weekly, but you can only do so much. That's partly why we only studied the south end of the pond thereafter. You can see the older oysters, the 2019 year class, did better, but again, the survival rates were lower than what we would have expected. And frankly, we did this experiment putting oysters out in different ecosystems, and they did better in other places. Again, we repeated it in 2021, and the survivalship was a little bit better for the spat-on shell than it was for the individual seed oysters. But frankly, one of the things that we're coming to recognize is that the ecosystem there needs some work, right? And so just so you're aware, people like the Nature Conservancy threw in the towel on shellfish restoration in Great South Bay when they came to the conclusion that the ecosystem at present conditions could not support bivalve restoration, because in that case they had repeated brown tides. So one thing, particularly during summer, that we're struggling with when it comes to oysters in Sag Pond is hypoxia, and that you hit late summer, the pond is going down to low oxygen levels every single night, and also the repeated occurrence of blue-green algae blooms. So that's something that we need to consider as we move forward with this. So I'm done. Oh yes, please.
What is the salinity threshold where oysters perish?
That's a good question, and you can go up the Hudson River, and we had a project doing this, and go to places where the salinity is as low as 3, and the oysters are fine. They're there. They may not be reproducing at the same rate they would if it was 10, for example, but it doesn't kill them. They can handle the lower salinity. But they probably do better, and in fact, you know this, of course, but one of the reasons that the oysters do well in Mecox Bay is the lower salinity. At higher salinity, oysters are more vulnerable to both disease and predators. So actually, it's a good thing. And again, one of the reasons they do well in Mecox Bay, that salinity, as you know, hovers, probably on average, you would know better than I'm going to guess around 15 if you took the average over a whole year. And again, it's keeping them free of disease and fewer ocean predators on those individuals.
But for the marketability, wouldn't you have to get it to a sweet spot so that it's
Sure, yeah.
desirable
Well,
in the
remember, I'm
market?
not thinking about markets.
Right.
I'm thinking about just a sustainable population.
Right, and Mecox, you're talking about obviously sustainable population, but also for the commercial harvest,
yes.
recreational harvest.
Right, yes.
Because
I think ideally, for reproductive purposes, if you want the oysters to be in great reproductive condition, staying somewhere above, around 10 and higher is good. But they can handle the low salinity.
Can they survive a prolonged bout of zero salinity?
Probably not.
Okay.
Does the temperature of the water have anything to do with it when it's low?
Well, they can. I mean, they don't. If they're out of the water and they freeze, they're over for an extended period of time. Yeah, they should be. They can handle cold temperatures pretty well.
I mean, hot temperature, that's...
High temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if they're out and they're baking, they're gonna die.
No, I mean, no, in the water, like in...
Oh, yeah. Remember this. So here's the thing about oysters. Recognize they can be found from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Right, so they don't mind the warm temperatures as much as some other bivalves, like blue mussels, for example. And Greg, you've worked with oysters longer than I have. If you have anything you want to add on all those fronts, or
No, what you said pretty much.
yeah, okay. Yeah, these are just really my conclusions. So, I mean, the upshot being that there are problems that need to be mitigated. And, mitigating septic and fertilizer from a nitrogen point of view is important. And again, we're pushing on the oyster front, but it's been, given how well oysters do in Mecox Bay, and we've even done a little work at Georgia Pond. And given those two water bodies, the oysters have done better. I'm surprised that the survival rates are not better in Sag Pond, and the only thing that I can point to is again the oxygen levels being not great, and of course adult oysters can handle environmental disturbance better than these juveniles that we're putting out. So that's part of the story.
on the
as well.
subject of mitigating problems, unfortunately, I think there's a problem with our portal, transmitting this out to the public. Can we get a copy of your
Oh, absolutely.
presentation for the
Yes.
board? Because,
Yes.
it's always good to be able to get this out to the public on the education end. And technology
James, you
issues
have
get
it,
frustrating.
and you're welcome to share it. It's usually easier to share it as a PDF, so I'd encourage you to make it as a PDF for sharing. But because sometimes when you don't, things get lost or edited in a way I might not intend. But if you're able to make a PDF and share it, I would encourage that, or I could do that, either way.
Yeah, I'll reach out
It's
if
not
I
working.
can.
Think our
Okay.
portal's not working, that's what he said.
Chris, one
It's
more
good
question.
education.
Yeah.
Moving forward, what are your plans in this?
So for the coming year, we're going to continue to do the environmental monitoring we're doing, and we're probably going to go back to the oysters one more time. We're going to, and again, probably in this case, instead of working with the individual ones, we'll probably go for the spat on shell again and see what their performance looks like. Yeah, and again, you know, the southern pond is more hospitable for them than the upper end, but that'll be, you know, that's the plan for right now.
Have you considered any other bivalves as an alternative to oysters?
No, really. Only because oysters are more tolerant of the lower salinity and the higher temperatures than any of the others. And again, it seemed initially, again, based on MECOX, that it was a no-brainer, so to speak, because they do so well there. So we haven't thrown in the towel, but we're amending as we go. We learn, you know, with each time we do each deployment. We had two separate deployments in 2021 and 2021. We learned something, and we're engaged in adaptive management. So we learn and then change course as needed.
Well, thanks as always.
Okay,
Yes,
Thank
great.
you as
Thank you
always.
very much.
Great job, Dr. Goldberg.
And I encourage an invitation to each of you. Wednesday night is my State of the Bays address at Stony Brook, Southampton. So I invite all of you to come in person. At 7 o'clock, there'll be 10, 11 student posters by graduate students showing off the work they're doing for their doctoral studies, all about our surrounding water bodies. At 7:30, I'll give my address. And it's in person. If you can't make it, though, there's also going to be a Zoom option. So I would
Reinstate the cookies.
I think there'll be some cookies and coffee,
plus.
tea, and water. So you're encouraged to come and partake and ask good questions and talk to the students. It'd be great to see you.
Chris, do you need any more of those orange rafts?
Potentially, if you have some.
I text you Mark's phone number.
Okay.
He has, I think, 8 of them.
Okay.
I actually was talking to him over the weekend. He wanted to know if I knew anyone who needed them.
Okay. Yeah, I have a small team that makes different sorts of buoys, and so.
I can have them delivered.
Okay, let me check in with my team on that to see where they're at with regards to supply and demand for 2022.
Okay. They're free.
Okay, free, that's our favorite kind of offer. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we have another presentation here from Mr. Bart Burke from the Happy Oyster Company. Is there a sheet there to sign in, Bart?
Yeah.
Over here, and sign in over here, and make sure you state your name for the record before you
Yep.
make your presentation.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having me. First thing I want to say is thank you all for the great job you guys do. The job is tough, and thank you. My name is Bartels Burke. I live at number 1 Percy Street in West Hampton. I own and operate the Happy Oyster Company with my wife, Tony Jo. I also work at Cornell Cooperative Marine Division as a hatchery technician. Last June, trustees gave the Happy Oyster Company, Last June, the trustees gave the Happy Oyster Company permission for a test plot in front of the Pine Neck Sanctuary in Shinnecock Bay. The area is certified waters, but is restricted as a seed sanctuary by the trustees. We grew oysters in cages on the bottom. No interference with the seed production in the area. With a little love and care, the oysters grew very well. I stand before you today to get permission to amend my current New York State DEC off-bottom culture permit number T210 to include SS12 area, so I can tag and sell the oysters as farm raised. I'll stop there for a second if there's any questions in regards to what we did over there, but I have another topic that I'd like to cover. Nothing?
Any questions? Or?
How is that area where he wants to go?
Well, you're going to utilize the area that's certified currently, but is a shellfish sanctuary, correct?
Correct.
That's the trouble, you can't sell out of a sanctuary.
Yeah, I know, that's,
I
well, I don't think
You
we,
have to move to another area.
I think.
I don't think we, did we put anything in our regulations when we made it a sanctuary?
I think the.
It's, I wouldn't even go there with the sanctuary.
Yeah, I know, that's a,
Because next time you have someone putting clams in the base, they want to raise clams out of it.
yeah, I know, it's a tricky question.
I think we got to lock this down so that there's no ambiguity, so that.
Yeah, that's a discussion with our attorney
Yeah.
after
Okay.
this meeting.
All right. Let me continue on.
Go ahead.
Maybe
Yeah,
part of this next part might also help us out with
Continue
that.
on, continue on.
Second topic I like is that we must keep our tradition alive. Working on the water and in the water is one of the reasons why the trustees were created, to protect the valuable bay bottom for all town residents. We need to protect our heritage. Aquaculture is a vehicle to do that. Shellfish farming provides many benefits to the ecology and preservation of our bays. I would propose that we start to think about implementing some of the recommendations of the 2003 feasibility study that was conducted by you guys. Shinnecock and Moriches Bays are both capable of supporting substantial shellfish farming. The environmental requirements for oysters, clams, scallops are met in most areas. The major impediments seem to be use conflicts. To reduce use conflicts, we recommend geographic separation, establish mariculture zones, and most importantly, public involvement and transparency with all the other users on the bay. Relative to bottom culture, meaning planting it directly on the bay bottom, movable off-bottom culture affords a lot of benefits. More growth, accelerated growth, improved meats, and less loss from predators. Also less opposition from those against restricting the commons. Basic environmental requirements, ease of culturing, and potential market, we recommend, oysters and scallops are number one. Additional recommendations: minimize imports of breeding seed stock. Establish designated shellfish nursery and grow-out areas for transient mobile gear in Moriches and Shinnecock Bay. Issue permits to vetted applicants with trustees' approval. Perform visual assessment to help determine the appropriateness of the shellfish equipment in those specific areas. Because so little shellfish culture has occurred in Shinnecock and Moriches Bay, it is likely that the first cultural attempts will need some experimentation. Therefore, the regulatory framework should include a good deal of flexibility to help ensure the success of new shellfish farmers. I consider requiring each shellfish grower to devote a certain percentage of the shellfish to public stock enhancement as a requirement for receiving the permit. The entire process should be done with full transparency with all parties involved. I am hoping we can move forward to this proposal, as the benefits for Southampton Town having commercial aquaculture area far outweighs any objections that I think could arise. Thanks again for your
Okay,
time.
thank you, Bart. I have some questions. I got Dr. Gobler here. Can I ask you to come back? Dr. Gobler, can I ask you a question?
Sure, yep.
If I may? I know you're kind of front and center on what we're discussing right now relative to this. Relative to what we're talking about, an off-the-bottom type of a project that he's talking about, can this live harmoniously in an area that we also have as a shellfish in the bottom sanctuary, or is that problematic?
I think, certainly floating gear would be preferred to on-bottom culture in that particular case. And I think also we have the precise sort of, just for background, so we're all talking about the same thing, recognize that within Weesuck Creek, we have, I believe, upwards of 35 individual hard clam spawner sanctuaries that have contributed towards a 2,000% increase in landings and more in Shinnecock Bay. Shinnecock Bay now has more hard clam landings than Great South Bay. And again, 2,000% change since restoration began a decade ago.
Phenomenal.
And same thing for densities, 2,000% increase, perfectly timed. And we've got a paper being considered by the international scientific community that's really looking at all our hydrodynamic models, larval transport, the whole thing. So off-bottom gear, certainly, 35 or so individual sanctuaries in Weesuck Creek. So certainly, avoiding those particular plots within that particular area would be preferable. And certainly floating gear would be better than precisely on-bottom gear. And I'll just also add that the associate director for shellfish restoration at the university, Michael Dole, also happened to be an oyster farmer and was one for 10 years. So I think he also could, his farm was out in Montauk, and he certainly could give guidance on how to make the two things work together. But the other thing to think about and the upside is that every aquaculture location is actually an opportunity for additional restoration, right? Technically, an oyster farm is a spawner sanctuary. So what do we do with the hard clams? We just planted as many adults together as possible, right, in a wild setting because it's down in the sediment. But if you have oysters in floating gear, once water temperatures get warm enough, they all spawn at the same time, and you're going to create lots of individual larvae. And in fact, due south of Weesuck Creek, just on the other side of Dockers, we've got, as you know, seven oyster reefs there, and those oysters are reproducing. And actually, we're seeing sets of oysters for the first time in Shinnecock Bay as well. So I think there are opportunities. I think I would love the opportunity, if that were to move forward, to be able to be part of the discussion, and actually get Mike as part of the discussion to maximize the synergy between the approaches.
That's exactly why I requested you come back up, because I do see a lot of potential here for synergies that could work out from many different, but it requires a careful collaboration among us all.
Yeah.
And even at the beginning of the sanctuaries that we have, it was all the stakeholders around the table, including the commercial fishermen.
Yes.
And I think that's what really helped make it all very successful, and I think
Yes.
we need to do the same here.
Yeah.
So if anybody else has anything to say, you've answered my questions.
Okay, great.
I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure.
And-
And,
and-
happy to have the joint discussion, because I think there are, each farm is a restoration site. And so, so long as, and off-bottom gear, and particularly avoiding those individual smaller plots.
Right. It's an overlapping area, right, that we're in. And I
Yes.
think that for it to be successful and harmonious, I welcome the collaboration,
Great.
and I think that's what we need to do here.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Great.
Dr. Gold.
Thanks, Chris.
Greg Rivera, maybe you could speak to this for the board, as far as aquaculture, floating gear in the Peconics, and some of the issues that some of the user groups have come upon as far as conflicts, sailing, as I know, the Devon Yacht Club and some of the people out in Gardeners Bay were very much against the floating aquaculture, even though it's a better way to grow the shellfish a quicker way. So can you give
Yeah,
us a
they
little?
don't know how to sail, people, but that's another story. Sorry.
No, I'm, I.
Tell it like it is, I appreciate
I
that,
really,
right?
we really need all the user groups and people like yourself, Bart and
Yeah.
Chris and the Baymen's Association and, the marina people to get involved. Because if we're going to do something like this, it's going to basically almost sterilize certain parts of the bay with, sites.
Yeah, if you look at where Islip Town has a fairly large assemblage of floating gear in Great South Bay, near Captree, near and Sexton Islands, it's only thing that goes through there are jet skis because it's really shallow. And if you had a clam sanctuary, people would be walking on your clams. That's how shallow it is. They go by boat, but they walk in waders or bathing suits in the summer. So you wouldn't want a really shallow area like that. But what Dr. Goldman said, the rest of it makes a lot of sense.
Floating gear is a great way to grow oysters. Bottom gear on top of clams is not good, but if you can avoid these sanctuaries altogether, that's what I would think. And if, I highly recommend that each and every one of you read at least the executive summary to this 19-year-old report that Bart showed, that the Department of State paid for and the trustees asked for. It's literally April of 2003. It's exactly 19 years old. And I can email you the executive summary. It's a really big document, but the summary's great, and here's something that you might want to hear. I didn't even know this. Aquaculture has a high economic multiplier. Every dollar of revenue, in other words, every dollar that an oyster farmer gets for their oyster, generates $7.50 of additional economic activity. That's like almost double. People say 3-4 times economic for like other things. So they're buying boats, they're buying outboards, they're buying trucks,
It's probably more.
buying
now.
coffee.
It's probably more now because oysters are worth more.
Well,
Far more.
this is basically, economic multiplier could stay the same at 7.5, but what they're saying is, for example, if in 1 year 20 growers, which is a reasonable number, had 100,000 market size oysters each, you could do that on 2 acres, for 35 cents a piece. I mean, that should be doubled. It's like 60 to 75 cents an oyster now. This is 19 years ago. That's a really low number. I think even, maybe not even then, but, so they'll receive a total of $875,000, that 20 people. So nobody's getting rich on this, but it's, you know, it's 100,000 oysters is a minimum amount, I would think, for a commercial grower that's been in it for a number of years. So they're saying that if you multiply that by 7.5, it's about $6.5 million bucks. So you're looking at 13 million, just for those 20 people.
Yeah.
If, you know, with the multiplier, obviously. And they're saying 50% a year, so if you get to 250,000, then it's even more. So it's quite substantial, the numbers. Again, it should be because you're taking public underwater land and privatizing it. I mean, yeah, you can ride a boat over it, but you can't really do much else. And the report also talks about fish traps and putting some of these areas, creating these aquaculture zones near fish traps. Now, that might be a problem for someone like, you know, John Semlier, but up in, up where our Bay Scallop Sanctuary is, off the causeway in Orient Harbor, East Marion, Orient, there's a couple of fish traps. And the guys at first were kind of upset. It's a muddy bottom there, so you're not going to do much else. And their traps are obviously in the more gravelly areas closer to shore. But what we found is fish are attracted to those lantern that's hanging. It's a fish. So you attract fish, they go into the trap. So the guys love it now, and so do sport fishermen, of course.
Then you have bait fish and then you
Yeah.
have big fish. No, I know the questions were always in Shinnecock with the pound traps and gear being set there was that, you know, we basically had them take out by, you know, Memorial Day because of, you know, boating and everything like that, and running into stuff and, you know, having issues with stuff floating. So if we're going to move forward, we're going to have to really, you know, pick everybody's brains on how best to situate this. I know the south side of western Shinnecock Bay is very, very shallow. It does have some eelgrass beds, which the floating gear really wouldn't have any issue with because it'd be on the surface. And historically, they've been very good clam and also scallops areas. So maybe utilizing some of those areas, being that boats, the only thing that would be there would be like small boats or maybe jet skis. So there are opportunities. I just think that we have to sit down with multiple user groups like we
Definitely.
did when we established the sanctuaries. And I think it's something potentially that could be really good for the, you know, the bays and community.
Trustee Horace, you mentioned Mecox Bay and these oysters that come out. They're pretty fresh. They're edible, but most people around here like salty oyster. Go to New Orleans and you see the difference. It's like, it's like, this is the same oyster we have. It is the same species. Someone like Willie Caldwell, who I know, could harvest from Mecox, have his 2-acre thing in Mauritius, Shinnecock, put them there with, it's all legally legal, and salinize them for like days or weeks, and then sell them at a premium because now they taste like a better oyster.
So finish
Than
them.
stuff, correct, finishing them, exactly.
So similar.
So it's not just, you know, people like Bart that want to just only grow stuff from hatchery. There's no reason it couldn't be for that kind of thing as well, or do both.
Well, that's
So,
what
like
Chuck's-
what Chuck's.
Chuck Steidel did that with the Baymen's Association back when this document was being written. He was having us go down in Mecox Bay and harvest oysters. He'd put them on his racks for 2 to 3 weeks, and he could double and triple the price of the oyster
Sure.
that we would have.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Palatable.
That's a great example.
You want sustainability on your resources, but you also want the best use of your resources. And I think that you got to be taking a hard look
Because
at this.
and I've seen those Shinnecock oysters, they're kind of gnarly. They're clusters, but you can,
Clean them up.
make some beauty out of it if you do those,
Right.
knock them apart.
They have a lot of worms in them. Moving them to a higher salinity, the worms would just vanish out of
Yep.
it.
Right, so I think we have to take a wider look at what is exactly going on here,
Yeah.
to the best interest of utilizing our resources, conservation perspective and all the above.
And I'll leave you with one thing. I worked with the county on their scalp thing 15 years ago. I worked with the town of Brookhaven on their leasing program, and a little bit with Islip. And one thing that Brookhaven and Islip got right is they don't lease these plots, they have licenses. And I don't know how it worked in Cold Spring when people had oyster pots, and they got a pot permit from you guys.
We would give them a letter of permission to utilize the area if it,
Transient.
instead of scallops or something happened.
Right.
They would actually have to move.
Right, something like that, to me, is superior for you and for the town, because ask the county how it works. It's insane. People spend a year getting this lease. It's a lease, so has to go to the county clerk, there's a recording fee,
Long time.
and you decide that, you know what, I really don't like oyster farming after all. What? All that work, and it's not a lot of money for them. It's a couple, $300. So the price of getting into it now, it's going up now after the 10-year review. But why I'm saying all this, it's like evicting someone from a house you own. Good luck. With a license, you could say, guess what? You're not a plumber in the town anymore because you're a lousy plumber. You're out of here. You can just take the license away like that. No lease, so stay away from the lease work.
Plus with the.
You got that,
with the
Mark.
lease,
And
Does
derelict
it make
gear,
sense?
that's
I'm not an
another-
expert with this. but
Derelict gear is another issue.
derelict gear could happen with any of these things.
Yes.
Yes,
especially
you're
with the
right.
lease too.
So a bond is possible for that.
Especially with the lease too, the county lease, say if you're done, you're not gonna waste anymore, and he wants to go do it, he has to track down you to get permission from you to
Right.
do it.
Right, yeah, it's crazy, it really is, and the county admits it's kind of nuts, but
We're not
back
gonna-
then it was.
We don't want to do anything that's nuts. We got enough nuts going on.
That's a great suggestion, though.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank
That's why
you
you're
for
here.
consideration,
That's why you're here, Dr. Gobler,
Yes.
Mr. Burke.
thank you.
Thank you. Are you have anything else you want to add there? Mark?
I've got nothing more to add. I'm just looking to,
You
You got to speak to the mic there, Bart, if you want.
looking to farm some oysters, guys. That's what I'm trying to do.
Mike?
Keep our heritage alive and keep the way of the way of things of Southampton town going the way it is. If I could just speak up one quickie on floating gear versus sinking gear. They are cages. They are movable. A pot permit would be an awesome way to start. We can regulate the size of how high they come off the bottom, what type of legs are on them. My concerns about floating gear is that the DEC doesn't particularly care for them. We're going to have a bird mitigation. One reaction causes something else. If we did floating gear, now all of a sudden we have to have fishing line up all over it to be able to keep the birds off, or some sort of whirly gig, which it can be done. I mean, don't misunderstand me. We'll do whatever it takes. If we can utilize the whole water column, that would be even better. Again, trying to keep the bays as clean as we possibly can and preserve what we have.
Have you ever had a conversation with any of the local baymen, especially maybe Willie Caldwell, he's the president of the Baymen's Association, on this topic? Because, whether they're an advocate or, for you or maybe against you, and that would be a hurdle that you would have to clear through, a public hearing process if we were to go that route. So I'd like, maybe advocate to that entity first and see if what their take is on it.
Willie Caldwell is kind of a difficult guy for me to get a hold of. I do believe Greg has spoken with him. I did speak with Sammy Rispoli at great length in regards to it. He's also cited in that feasibility study. If the communication between the bayman and the farmer is open, I don't think there's going to be a problem. That's the biggest problem, is that the baymen are afraid that we're taking away valuable bay bottom. And their concerns are very, very valid. the communication between the bayman and the farmer, possibly even that bayman become a farmer to help subsidize his income as well, with cages that were all, I don't necessarily want to make a uniform cage or put some sort of regulation. I happen to make all my own gear. Maybe dimensionally, it could be, X, Y, Z. Because you guys are controlling the bay bottom here, it gives us a very, very unique opportunity because we are one of the only ones in the country that do have the control of the bay bottom and what goes on it. Anything I can do to help, any committees, I would like to see this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you for
very
your
much,
time, Bart.
Okay, so we'll discuss that and figure out what's the best way to
Oh, there's a lot of questions.
handle that, so the board will have that discussion.
Yes.
Okay, moving right along, we do have a bunch of public hearings that have to be dealt with. The first one is the notice of public hearing to consider amending trustee rules and regulations A340, Section 80, personal watercraft lifts, floats, to clarify the trustees' rules and regulations with respect to permit requirements for personal watercraft lifts and float systems for commercial properties. Is there a
I'd like to make, I'll second.
second to open it? We all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to close it with a vote.
Well, I thought, is there anybody here that wants to,
Well, first, does anybody want to speak on this? Anybody here to speak for or against this public hearing? Mr. Tertullian?
Thank you, President Horowitz, Aram Tertullian, First Coastal, West Hampton Beach. I just had a chance to grab this, to look at it, but if you could just briefly summarize what it is that the board proposes to do, that would be very helpful to me. Thank you.
On this, we were planning on not, we have some problems with this, so I think we were going to
Just close it.
close it.
Oh, you're not going to vote on this?
We're gonna vote it and close it and reopen it.
Rework it.
Rework it.
okay. I take back what I asked.
we had received quite a bit of public comment that we're in the process of reviewing. Having conversations with the Bay Constables, talking to our new attorney, Mark Redmond here, and a discussion amongst the board to maybe a different direction, so I think that's what we're gonna do.
We feel
Yeah.
there's a better way to resolve the issue that the initial intent was trying to clarify,
Totally on board.
okay? So I think, it's in everybody's best interest that we take trustee Pell's.
I have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
There's a second, so you want to take
Do
a vote?
call.
I'll do a roll call vote.
You want me to, or you wanna do? Usually the secretary does it.
Well, then go ahead and do it.
Okay, Edward J. Warner,
I'm not in favor of it as it is proposed, so I'd like to
Vote no.
vote
vote
no.
no. Ann Walker,
No as well.
William Parrish,
No.
William Pell, secretary, no. Scott Howards, president.
No. So this, we can close this.
We can close it with all no's.
Okay, so
Got that, Lisa?
Yep.
Yes.
I'll,
A vote against the bill as it is sponsored, and then we're gonna have a vote to close the hearing, correct?
I'll
Yes.
make a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll second it.
Seconded by trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll take a roll call.
So we took it out of order, right?
Yes.
Resolution.
Yeah, it's no.
No.
Yeah, we're not going forward.
Thank you, James, for
Thank you,
clarifying that.
So that's that. We'll figure out a better way to resolve that issue at a later
Now,
date.
we will renotice it in a different
When we-
format
when we-
at a future time when we have the discussion and the information. that we
And a plan to remedy
Yes.
what that is, but it's not going in that format, no. Next is a notice of public hearing for 7 Bayberry Cove Lane, Shinnecock Hills, permanent application for replacement of bulkhead and shoreline protection. Now, this would be the first time that we would be opening up this public hearing. I would like to know from our counsel, Mr. Mark McBredman, if the affidavits are in order and if we have proper posting and if we have authority to open this public hearing.
I believe that we do, pursuant to the letter of Section 47 regarding sign posting and posting by mail. I have heard from some residents who weighed in and raised some, I think, very valid issues as well, but I suppose we can discuss that whenever the trustees wish to. But I believe there is enough to open it.
I also, Mr. Reiner brought in the affidavits and they're inside the,
Here they are.
Yeah, you need to examine those affidavits.
Thanks.
I also think that we need a kind of a change of protocol, which is a separate conversation to allow for more ample time for the assistant town attorney to review documentation.
I've seen the affidavit, the sign affidavits, and now I'm actually getting the mailing affidavits, but it's fine. Just have to check the dates. It looks like they were delivered to all, I don't know if in the affidavit it says whether these are abutting properties. Is that in there?
yeah, it's in the,
It's in the affidavit? Okay.
we sent him the addresses as well when we sent the mailing affidavit to him.
Okay, there is one address, the Hunsinger's property. Ms. Hunsinger had called me just prior to me coming into this meeting, and it does not look like this one was signed. So I don't know if they got notice in the mail or not.
So should we not, if we're not sure on the process, is it advisable, since it's a public hearing with substantial public concern, that we hold this public hearing, or are we opening this public
I
hearing?
believe the consultant is here to speak to the application.
Yes?
Yeah, please.
We can't really speak unless we open it.
Yeah.
That's true. What's the procedure there? I mean, if we don't have a authorization to open this,
Can the consultant speak?
Yeah, maybe, I think it might be wise to hear
Okay.
the consultant before the trustees make an issue on that, and before I do as well.
We should open it
no, we can't.
Can't open it.
Don't open it.
I'm not going to speak about the project
Yeah, good,
whatsoever.
good,
Let's
good.
just talk about the noticing requirements. Can we do that?
Yes.
That's where we are right now, Grant.
Yeah, right.
Can
So,
you state your name for the record, please?
Brant Reiner from Nelson Pope and Voorhees on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for having me, trustee, all trustee members. In regards to the noticing requirement, we went strictly by letter of the code requirements. First of all, talk about the mailings. We were given the notices on a Wednesday, had to have them in the mail by Friday. We got them in the mail as instructed based upon the property owners that were identified by the trustees as abutting neighbors. Those neighbors do all abut the property in question that has the bulkhead that is being replaced. So we believe that the mailing notices are accurate in accordance with the code requirements. The affidavit, of course, speaks to that as well. With regards to the public poster, the poster was put on the property also on the Friday it was supposed to, 10 days prior to the hearing. It was set back no less than 10 feet from the property boundary facing the public street. Again, exactly verbatim as noted in the trustees' noticing requirements. I cannot post it on a public property. I cannot post it on a neighboring property. There was some questions about moving the sign closer to the closest public street. I don't know how the trustees would expect us to do that because we just don't have access to those properties to put any kind of posting on them. I can show you specifically where the sign is located to be posted. So this is the bridge, of course. This is Honeypot Pond, Middle Pond. This is the bridge. Our property boundary is right here. This is where the driveway meets this private road. The posting is right here, facing this direction. I have photos that I had sent to the trustees.
So indicate where the bulkhead is that you want to replace.
So the bulkhead in question is right here. sorry, right here, and right here,
And you posted,
and we posted right here,
So how-
facing this way.
how far is that from the average person in the public to be able to see that?
Well, there's a property owner right here, there's a property owner right here, and this road is accessible.
But you're talking about public property versus private property, right? So I'm just trying to get, like you're saying, private property, like how far from the public, the average person in the public, is that sign for someone that is in the neighborhood, just goes by to see it? How far is that?
Well, I don't know that there's any restrictions on coming down this road. And again, in your regulations, it does not specify public versus private, it just says roadway or street. I can't post out here. Unless the trustees give me special permission, or the town itself gives me permission to post in its right-of-way, or a public right-of-way, or a private right-of-way, or a private property owner gives me permission to post out here, I can't put a sign there.
And that's why we posted all of our public hearings.
And I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've never come across an issue like this, so I'm just as confused as everyone else is right now.
Well, no, that's fine, because the reality is that, you know, it's a public hearing, and the purpose of it is for public comment. And I think the board is sensitive to that fact, and we're just trying to make sure that we follow our protocols, and we're also sensitive to the public's concerns, and we do things the right way, that's all. And I think that's in the best interest of yourself and your clients as well, so.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to do here, and that's why I'm looking to Mr. McRedmond.
So for purposes of the record, whether or not proper public notice was given pursuant to Section 47 of our Blue Book, with regard to the mailing, everything is stamped March 25th, certified mail. That is, I believe, 11 days prior to today, and the code section notes that it has to be mailed out at least 10 days prior to the hearing date. So that satisfies the code section. And as for the sign, the Section 47 J2 subsection A does require that the sign be displayed on the premises, which it was, not in a public area. And it has to be facing a public street, which I believe it was. The issue with homeowners has been that the street that goes to the bridge, which is fairly long, I think it's about 200 feet, is a private road. We checked it out in GIS. It does come up as a private road. So as a practical matter, regarding the spirit of the public actually getting notice, it is supposed to be meant ideally for them to be passing by in a public roadway and see the sign. Here, they would have to traverse a road that is identified as private to get that notice. So I understand it's a tough spot, because practically speaking, there may be some difficulties legally. As per the code section, it is proper notice. Whether people actually got notice is a different matter.
There was several emails that were circulated around with pictures of the posting, so, and these people are complaining about it was posted and they couldn't see it, but they took a picture of it, so in reality, they know it's there.
Who actually owns the road?
That I
It doesn't, yeah, go right ahead.
I think it was the homeowners that are the property owners on the island, but you could speak better to that. I think it's an LLC, I believe, but
Well,
not the,
My client does not own the road.
right, exactly.
But he owns the property
owns
where
the
the
bridge.
bulkhead is going in.
Yes.
James, you know what might be helpful? Do you mind bringing that spot up on
Well,
that?
is this, by all means, but it goes back to the initial, because we haven't opened this public hearing yet, but it
Right.
goes back to the initial.
It's a tricky spot.
From the town attorney's perspective, do we have authority under the requirements to open this public hearing? The board, you know,
I think we do.
I believe you do.
Yep.
I'm not sure how we would remedy it by providing notice on land that would be public, for the public to actually see this sign, which
That would be
not-
illegal on our part.
which would not be in keeping with the word of the code. So, yeah, technically, I think the two prongs are met for
Okay.
opening a public hearing.
okay. So that's all we need to know.
All right.
We can keep it open so they can come in.
Yep.
Let's go through the process here. So who's making a motion?
Make a motion that we open this public
Warner
hearing.
makes a motion.
A second.
Trustee Pell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's open this public hearing.
Mark, can I have that?
No, of course, yeah.
We have the consultant of record, Brent Reiner, who's going to speak to the project for us and the public.
Can you put up the plans? So, again, Brant Reiner, Nelson Pope and Voorhees on behalf of the applicant, 7 Bayberry LLC. Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. The application is for a replacement of a bulkhead. James is going to be bringing the plans up on the screen. In front of you, you see some photos as well, so as I'm describing the project, I can point to it, or you can just sort of reference yourself. So currently, the property that is subject to the bulkhead replacement takes access from the mainland onto their property via a bridge. The bridge is also services to connect a common driveway from the mainland onto the island, or the peninsula, I should say. And the bulkhead supports the land to provide stability for the common driveway and the bridge. It's been bulkheaded for going back into the 60s, I believe. And it's now time to replace it. It's an old timber treated bulkhead. As you can see from some of the photos here, they're really hard to tell in here, but it's in your packages as well. The bulkhead is stable, but it will start to give way as the years move on, and my client would like to get out in front of that before there's any catastrophic issues.
Brent, one quick question. There was bulkhead that was replaced where the bridge was replaced and the bulkhead
So,
underneath it within 8 years, right?
so yes, Trustee Warner is correct. So there's two sides to the bridge. There's we'll call it the north side, which is on the left-hand side of the screen there, and the south side. The bridge itself was shored up, I'm going to say going back at least 10, if not 12 years ago. And when that work was done, they also replaced the wing walls, the bulkheading on the south side of the bridge, which would be on the right-hand side of the bridge if you're looking at that screen. That is currently protected with a fiberglass composite plastic sheathing. So what we're looking to do on the north side is remove the timber bulkhead and replace it in place with the same type of, or similar material, fiberglass composite vinyl sheathing. It's a total of about 185 linear feet of bulkheading. It's on the east and west side of the common driveway. As you can see, the hatched area is the common driveway on the plan, and to the left and right of that are thicker black lines. Those are demarcating the bulkhead. There's no expansion of the bulkhead required or proposed. We're simply removing the timber bulkhead that's there and replacing it with vinyl composite material, and removing the face piles that are there and replacing them with 8-inch tropical hardwood piles. The only difference in this new bulkhead is that we're going to further anchor it by through bolting it. The tie rods are going to be connected on either side so that the bulkheads are taking on lateral forces to help, again, increase its longevity. The idea is that we replace this now and get another 50 years out of it, minimum. So I do have the project engineer with me today if there are any technical questions about that. But that's the rundown on the bulkhead. And on the south side of the bridge, where those two wing walls you see extend and they cut into the bank, we are experiencing some erosion there. And in order to help to mitigate that erosion, we're looking to put in about 4 to 5 rows of core logs to stabilize the bank. And we're going to plant, as necessary, some seaside vegetation to help stabilize the core logs and the toe of the bank. We intend to use best management practices for the replacement of the bulkhead. Again, our project engineer, he does intend to be on site to oversee the construction, to make sure that the engineering practices are maintained and that there will be no potential for adverse environmental impacts. We understand that's a high priority for the trustees, the neighbors, as well as our client. You know, they don't want to see Honey Pot Pond or Middle Pond disturbed by this work. But I'm here because there's no other choice for us. Everybody benefits by this bulkhead being as strong and as functional as possible. If we let this go any longer, there could be an issue. You
Are
know?
you gonna reclaim any of the sand that's underneath the bridge when you do this bulkhead?
There's no intention for any kind of reclamation dredging.
Okay, no reclaiming?
No. So the bulkhead is not failing to the point where it's depositing.
Okay,
There's no signs of that. And anything that is being deposited in that area is fresh sand.
from the shoreline?
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the aerials, you'll see that they're shoaling out into Middle Pond as you get away from the bridge. They're shoaling around the bridge. But more importantly is there's energies that are being directed at the bridge.
Thank you.
So that is what, again, makes the bulkhead very important. Any type of wave energies that are coming around the bulkhead have the potential to further chip away at the banks on the south side. So that's why we chose to put the core logs in as a hybrid, actually a fully soft solution, rather than further extending the bulkheads. So we're trying to be as ecologically sensitive in terms of the project scope, but also the bulkhead on the north side is very important to maintain the integrity of the driveway, which must support heavy equipment such as fire trucks and garbage trucks that go over the driveway and the bridge. So again, we put our best engineering efforts forward, as well as being mindful of the environmental sensitivity, and we feel as though this is the best project to happen here.
So you still waiting on all the permits, right?
So we have Department of State and Army Corps approvals for this work. DEC received notice, we received notice from the DEC that they have the application as of January 22nd. So we're still waiting for the
Wait on
DEC to
that.
respond.
And is there a set of the engineered plans here? Do we have?
Yeah, there's a full set of engineering plans in your file.
Let's take a look.
And again, that's what James has up on the screen.
I can't, it's hard for me to,
Yeah.
it's too small.
During the last bulkhead replacement, I know the sheathing was vibrated in and very little jetting and, was done. I believe the pilings were pounded in. Is this going to be a similar way you're going to do this project now? Not use a water jet to make to interject the sheathing and stuff into the ground?
So that's a very good question, and I do have Chris Voorhees with me here. He is the engineer who designed the work. He may be able to speak to it in general, but of course that would be something we need to speak with the marine contractor about. Chris, you feel comfortable speaking?
And one other quick thing, on the north side where you're going to do this replacement, there's extensive wetlands on both sides of the approach. What kind of mechanism are you going to put in place to prevent any siltation or any disturbance to those two particular areas?
So Trustee Warner is correct. There are salt marshes on either side. And there's two ways to approach this. One is we could think about turbidity curtains. Turbidity curtains could be, could lay heavily on the marsh. The other idea is that we could implement some kind of siltation fencing in the marsh itself, a few feet seaward of the bulkhead. That's something that we would love to discuss with the trustees in terms of what they want to see. There's ways for us to address that, but ultimately, the idea is that the project was designed so that we could remove the bulkhead in small sections. And again, I don't want to speak out of turn, so Chris, if I do, please come up and grab me. We were looking at, possibly like 6-foot sections, pulling out, excavating behind the sheathing, pulling the sheathing out. I'm sorry, excavating behind the sheathing, putting the new sheathing, driving the new sheathing in behind the existing sheathing that's there, and then pulling the timber out from in front of it. So in our mind, it creates a very minimal potential for any sediments to be released during the project into the waters. So again, we're looking at the best management practices, being very mindful of the potential impacts to the ecology, and also being very cognitive of the engineering. So if you think about it in concept, what I just described, once you have that vinyl sheeting in place, you can push the materials back behind it and then move on to the next section. If you do that in small enough sections, you can really control any potential for erosion.
But just before you speak to the engineering aspect of it, Brent, could you just revisit the core logs and just talk a little bit about their benefits and their time, their length of time that they're useful, I guess is the, I don't know, you probably have a better word for it.
So, James, do you have any of the photos?
These?
Yeah, okay, so that's a really good shot right there. That is the north side, I'm sorry, the east side of the south side of the bridge.
Right.
So if you see where the bulkhead sort of dives into the bank, the idea was we had two options. One, we could continue the bulkhead and continue to protect the land, which is the most obvious, easiest way, engineering-wise, to do it. Or we could be mindful of the transition of connecting the hard structure to the natural shoreline. So the core logs do exactly that. They're a transitionary zone where they'll be staked into the bank on a fairly steep slope. I don't remember what it is, but the idea is that they're staked into place, and we leave a little bit of room in between the core logs to be able to plant them with some vegetation that will take root. The roots grab into the core logs, grab into the bank. So over time, the vegetation starts to create a naturalized bank, as the core logs start to decompose.
Okay.
The idea is that we do get some, during times of high tide, we do get some water up to that toe. So the staking of the core logs is going to be very important. And then again, getting that vegetation to anchor as quickly as possible to help keep the bank as stable as possible.
Do the core logs come with plant seeds in them that basically they get water and then they can grow right out of the core log, or do you?
We're working on that. There are options to be able to plant into the core logs. And again, we want to create as much root mass here as possible.
Yes.
Without creating height.
You don't want height with.
Yeah, we don't want any kind of wind sweeping type of erosion scenario here. So low profile vegetation, some woodies mixed in with some grasses to find the best species that will take root here.
No, we really appreciate you looking towards softer, greener alternatives, especially in a transitional area like this. So thank you for that. Thank you for that explanation as well.
Sure, yeah. So that's all I have. If you have any technical questions, I can have Chris come up here and answer any engineering aspects.
You can just have Chris come up, as I do have a question.
Thanks, Brent.
Ability. Absolutely. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Voorhees. I'm a project manager, professional engineer for Nelson Pope Engineering.
Hi, Chris, how you doing?
Good.
Currently, the state of the bridge, there are two steel rods that go through the bridge that are basically patchwork holding it together. I was down there the other day, and the bulkhead seems to be like slowly but just expanding out. Are you going to do a similar project with the rod going through the new structure that's going to be there to hold them, like sandwich them together?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So we're proposing two bulkheads, and essentially, Brant touched on this. We have steel tie rods that bridge across the driveway underneath grade. That's going to tie those two bulkheads together. So they essentially become one self-supported bulkhead that supports either side of the driveway. So yes, steel tie rods will be utilized for structural integrity.
And do you have any comments on the wetlands and how you're going to protect them? What would be the best management practice from an engineering standpoint?
Yep. So as described, we will the plan in place is to leave the existing bulkhead as our sediment barrier during construction. And I'll say to the maximum extent practical, down, at the transition of the bulkheads, there may be some special case there that will have to provide, additional mitigation. But for the majority of the bulkhead, it seems very practical to leave the existing structure in place. Now, that is a structure that is older, but it is still intact. So it will keep the majority, if not all, sediment contained within the area of excavation. To answer your question a little bit more thoroughly, on the jetting, that is a common practice when installing bulkheads, when you hit an obstruction, to be able to move that below-grade sediment out of the way. That being said, that's utilized when necessary. For the most part, it is driven and, as you said, vibrated into the material. If jetting has to be used, it will, again, be behind the existing structure, so turbid waters will be contained.
Do we have further questions?
No, I don't have any further questions. I mean, my only concern is that, the public wanted to hear about this quite a bit and make sure their concerns were considered.
And I do have pictures prior to the project being done showing March, I believe 13th, I took these pictures at low tide. So we have a good baseline to go by as far as the sediment that has gone into the dredged area and underneath the bridge.
Take this back.
Cliff Drive here.
No, so yeah, exactly, and, or anything else. So I think that what we need to do is, we need to keep this public hearing open, so that we give the surrounding neighbors at least the ability to, it's just unfortunate they're not here, because they could have gotten some really good information from you, and perhaps we'll have to do that at a different session. So I think that we need to continue this on a different day. Suggestions? Fine.
I just wanted to ask, before we do, you make any motions today, can I ask the board if there are any concerns from the board with regards to this project?
I mean, my concern is just that we allow, whenever there's substantial public concern for a project, I think it's best that we err to hear what it is that the public is concerned and see if it's something that we need to take a look at crafting into what we do here. It sounds like you've done a great engineering job. It sounds like you're trying to account for the turbidity and, you're being very mindful of the ecosystem. That's all good. I just think that from a procedural perspective, I think the board also has to allow for public commentary. And I think that we need to hold this open for a cycle to allow people to express what it is that their concerns are. And then I think we move from there. I don't think it's going to slow up your process at all, because you're still waiting for permits from other regulatory authorities. I just think it's prudent for us to just make sure that all considerations are looked at carefully.
And it would probably be helpful if you were here when the public hearing is continued, correct? To be able to.
Well, yeah, if there's
address-
questions that you could clearly articulate, or concerns that you could explain, I think would be helpful.
But-
And again, there's been, people are reaching out to various board members, and even the town attorney's office directly, with questions or concerns, which would best probably be answered by yourselves. And I think we followed the proper protocol as per our town attorney today. And I think in the interest of public comment, transparency, and, the trustees doing the best job that they can do, taking into consideration all the above, combined with the fact that we're still waiting for the state, I think that it's probably prudent for us to hold it open for another session.
But to address, sorry.
Agreed.
But to address your question, I think that you both have done a very comprehensive job of addressing our concerns or looking to address them.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just wanted the board to understand that we did follow your public noticing requirements to the T. And this is now the second time we're being delayed due to a public noticing issue. So I just want the board to take that into consideration, that I feel as though if there were concerns from some of the public, somebody would be here to speak, and nobody's here today. So recognize that we're here before you. We've put a lot of money,
Also-
we put a lot of energy
Also,
into
we're
this.
waiting for, we actually very nicely and to wait to one more meeting.
Yeah, I understand that, and we're going to do
30
that.
days.
I'm not being combative, I just want
And
the
I,
trustees.
you know, you feel like you're pushing me, you know, like we're doing something wrong. I want to make sure it's very careful how I vote on this. I don't want another cliff drive where the sand goes in, fills it up, okay? That's my biggest concern. That's what I said to you before about this, you know?
Okay, I get all that, but I really honestly don't know how much more we can do in terms of
You did a lot,
resolving
so
that.
just relax.
So
Get back.
you've done your part. Now, I think the board needs to do its part, which is we need to
Okay.
allow the
Understood.
public the ability to voice its concerns, and you'll have, another day to address that as well. I think the board's responsibility is to facilitate good process, and I think that's what we're doing here today.
Understood,
That's all.
understood. Thank you, we appreciate it. Thank you for your
Lisa,
time.
what's,
Yep, we look forward to receiving
in-
comments and addressing them. Thank you very much.
Lisa, what's the next meeting date?
18th?
Next meeting date is the 18th.
18th?
You want to close it and keep it open?
No, I don't want to close it.
No.
100% don't want to close it.
Yeah, the
I want to
18th.
adjourn it.
I mean, adjourn it until,
Yeah,
until the 18th. That's what I meant.
that's what we
I'll
want.
make a motion to adjourn it to the 18th,
Second.
1 o'clock.
All
Thank
in
you.
favor?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to close it.
Okay, so this.
I'm
public
sorry,
hearing-
Ann, you seconded the adjournment? Okay.
Yes, and did
Okay.
beat Scott to it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so we have a notice of public hearing for the dredging at 147 Dune Road in Quogue. I'd like a motion to open that public hearing.
I make a motion to open.
Trustee Pell takes the motion.
Second.
Trustee Warner seconds. All in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Okay.
Keep on signing in there, you know.
I didn't sign in the first time, I was negligent, but now I'm at the top of the list.
All right.
Because we ran out of room at the
The
bottom.
way he maneuvered that? Okay, Junior.
Hey, James, can you put this up? Please.
Mr. McRedmond, has the adjoining abutting property owners been properly noticed and?
It does look like the affidavits of mailing are
Oh, good.
in good order.
Thank you. Mr. Tertullian.
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Aram Tertunian, First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, New York, on behalf of the applicant. Thank you, James, for putting up our site map. So this dredging is actually going to serve...
The laser doesn't work
Oh, too bad. It's actually going to serve two properties. You can see the red Suffolk County tax map line between those two docks, and the channel is designed to go between those two out into the deeper water, which you can see up at the top, the darker blue, and right into that area. Not quite exactly that far, but pretty close to it. Yeah, right out to the negative 3-foot contour. So we had met earlier at a work session with the board. And you had expressed an interest to look at this in a public setting, and we're happy to be here today. Here you can see the plan and cross-section for the proposed project. two things. Well, one thing that I recall from the work session was a desire to make sure we were not going to disturb the vegetated wetland marsh on either side. And so our channel design does that, and it has a 1-on-3 slope from the bottom of the channel up until meet the existing grade. And then there's also a separation between that stable slope and the wetland itself of, on the east side, that's about 20 feet, and then on the west side, it's even more. So we're confident that the design works. One of the things that we offered, and happy to take a condition on the permit, is that we'll have the channel staked in the field by a surveyor prior to construction, so that we can make sure construction follows plans.
That's a good plan.
Yes.
And this material is going to be loaded onto a barge, offloaded, and then trucked away to an upland site. And everything, right now, we're waiting on some DEC sampling approvals, but our analysis shows that this is all clean sand.
Anybody have anything?
I do.
Go ahead.
I think it's a very good project. Only thing I'm concerned is about, I like to track the sand once it gets dug and put on the barge to make sure it gets to the land, to the dump truck.
Right.
I want no, like, cleaning up the barge, anything, as it goes in the water. I want it,
Right, I think what,
somehow you gotta track the
Accountability.
sand.
yeah, and I think you have to make sure that who's ever gonna be responsible has to send a notice of commencement.
And, and when that sand's taken off, we want a bay constable there to watch.
Yeah, we've had some issues where things are ending up on our bottom in areas it shouldn't be ending up, and we want to avoid that. We don't want dredge spoils on the bottom. We want the material, if it's going to be put in containers and barge, to be contained, not to be let back into the bay bottom where it's not supposed to be. That way, the plan goes from A to B appropriately. I think what happens sometimes is people aren't sending notices of commencement, and the constables are not, they're not able to see. It's a big township, and they're doing the best they can. But they are supposed to give us notice, and, if they're gonna do dredge, and they're gonna take it to an upland site, we wanna make sure that it goes to
They're gonna
exactly
have-
where they say it's gonna go.
They're gonna have to notice us before they hit the, whatever dock they're gonna unload from. If it's one of our docks.
And the staking's a great idea, because
Yeah,
it's
that's good.
it's a great project, and you're doing a good job at protecting the adjoining, because we all know you don't want to have the wetland collapse, and then create a different issue.
Well, then it won't be a channel anymore.
Yeah, it won't work. Yeah, but I think your numbers are good, I think your plan's good, I think it's all good. We just got to make sure that the contract that actually executes it, does it the way we have it, and the state's going to have a say as well, the way they have it getting done.
Yeah, let me just run through the list that I heard. Stakeout site prior to dredging, notice of commencement so the bay constable can be present, and a tracking system from the dredging to the unloading to the final disposal.
That's all.
If you let us know ahead of time, we'll make sure there's a bay constable down there. to watch.
And the DEC is going to require us to give them a certificate of where the stuff goes as well, so we'll make sure you guys get that.
Okay, thank you.
And also, have you contacted the college in the proximity of their oyster reef to where you were?
Oh, I didn't do that, but I did look at it, and it's about, I don't know, more than 100 yards away. It's right by the bridge.
Yeah, I want to make sure that
But we'll give them a
the
heads up.
sediment doesn't, maybe put a silk curtain between that and the oyster project when you're doing the dredging.
Oyster cages. I should have asked Dr. Gobler when he was
here.
right here.
Yeah.
Hey, I
Missed an opportunity.
I certainly was calling on his expertise while I was here, so I know.
Well, this is really important.
I know you got your name on the top of the list, but,
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely coordinate them.
Close.
You want me to make a motion if you want to?
You can do it. You go with this, James, right? Environmental analyst perspective, it's good scope, good slope. All right, trustee Pell.
I'd like to make a motion to close this for 30 days for public notion.
Okay, so close it and leave the public comment period open for 30 days?
Do you want to do that, or until the next meeting? That'd be 14 days, wouldn't it? That's usually what we...
You want to do 14 days, since we have nobody from the public here, put that on the
Yeah.
record, no one's here from the public.
Okay.
I think
Relative.
14 days would be appropriate.
I think there's no,
Yeah.
there's no public, this one is not like the other scenario
Yeah.
where there was a lot of public commentary. There's no public commentary on this. So I think the 14 days is sufficient.
Okay.
So until April 18th.
Yeah.
I rephrase my motion. I'd like to adjourn this for 14 days to our next meeting.
I'm good with
At
that.
1 o'clock.
Or do you want to close it with a 14-day public comment period, written comment period?
I would prefer that.
Yeah, so
Yes.
why don't you close it? There is no public here.
Yeah.
Close it, make the
Okay.
motion to close it, but keep it open for a 14-day written comment
I'll
period.
second that then.
Okay, second.
Motion by trustee Pell, seconded by trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, now, we do public portion.
We got people waiting for us.
Okay, anybody from the public that wishes to address the board, if you could come up and state your name for the record and sign in on the sheet over here.
You can either sit here or stand, whatever you
Sit or
feel like.
stand wherever you're comfortable.
Should I flip to the next side?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Flip it over, yeah.
4 minutes, Scott?
I'm sorry?
4 minutes? How many minutes?
What are we doing here? Oh,
4 minutes.
4?
4 minutes? Okay.
Thank you for having me here, trustees. So my name is Josh Halsey. I work with the Peconic Land Trust. As you heard from Dr. Gobler earlier, we're doing a lot of work in partnership with Stony Brook University and Cornell Cooperative Extension on the Sag Pond Restoration Initiative. We are working on another phase that's within phase 1 and phase 2 of the initial project that Ron Paulson and Molly Graffam came to the trustees for,
yes,
which I believe you'll hear from them next month.
Yes.
great.
So this is a complementary application that we're putting forward to the CPF Water Quality Advisory Committee on the 16th. And it includes Poxabog Pond, which, as you saw in Gobler's presentation, is within the watershed and also is hydrogeologically attached to Sag Pond. And the request that I have for the trustees is that we could include the tax map number for Poxabog Pond on the application so that we can include this in to,
The CPF committee.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to that.
No, I think it's...
Fine, I think it's fine.
Yes.
excellent.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's easier for people to identify it.
Does he need a letter, Mark, or is just this board telling him it's okay enough, or?
Is there a letter, we can put forth a letter that's been, yes.
We'll make a letter for you.
More of a
Yeah.
formal,
Yeah.
Make a letter for you.
more of a formal list of what you're going to do so that we have it for our records, and then we'll craft a letter from that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay?
Thank you. Nice and easy for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You mind if you both come up and...
Fine.
Yeah, go ahead, just sign in and state your names for the record. Oh, you're always welcome.
Fireplace chat without the fireplace.
Afternoon, everyone. Piping plover season is on us again.
We know it.
Yeah. So on the 31st, I went down and took a drive down to the picnic area like I do on a regular basis. And I noticed that there were piping plover signs up already. Things were flagged off. The majority of the picnic area was off limits. Spoke to Bill and Scott. You folks were kind enough to get on it, and now it's reduced to one small area there. At this time, from Road D all the way to Road F, it's virtually shut off also. A couple of questions. Number one, is there a law mandating, a law now, not a guideline, a law mandating that prior plover nesting areas are put off limits to the general public?
Why don't you give us your list of questions? We have our environmental analyst here. who runs
Well,
the
that's
program.
that's question number one. Is that a law or a suggestion? No, a law. I looked it up, it's a guideline. Okay, guidelines, not necessarily, because you folks were, you moved some of the fencing that was already there. So it's in your purview to do that. Okay, that's question number one. Seems like with all the fencing that's done in town, it's like rolling out the red carpet for the plovers.
Which we have no, we
Problem.
want them to nest, we want them to have an area to nest, but there's the whole area from Halsey Neck to Road F is all nested off. And, well,
James,
a lot of
You want to
it.
sit up here, James?
It's all historic area.
Okay.
So-
From last year, it's nests from last year.
So I thought last year you said to me that you only put the nesting area up where they're nesting. There aren't even plovers there yet.
Prior to April 1st, you put up fencing in historic areas where they've nested from the year prior.
Okay.
That's where we put it this year.
Okay, so
One other thing, one other thing. How do you know how far to put that nesting area out? Because that nesting area
Well-
was so far out, I was down there at the high tide and the water was coming up and going through the nesting
I
area.
understand
You
that.
couldn't even
When-
walk past it.
When we put that fencing up, we had room for 3 cars to get past. We've had erosion, we had storms come up, and that has caused erosion in those areas. I saw it down there the other day, and the water was all the way up to the fencing, and you couldn't get a car around it. But originally, you were able to get through it. I always leave area for people to drive on. I drive on myself, and I leave area so people could drive on. Whether a storm comes and washes it away, like, I can't be out there every day fixing, bringing it back and going back and forth with storms.
Why is there a sign at the end of Road F that says, "Do not enter"?
That's not our sign.
So somebody put a sign up there then, so you're not going down there and seeing what's going on, because there was a sign at the end of Road F that says, "Do not enter."
piping plover
But when I
habitat.
pulled on, it said, "Do not enter," when I pulled on the end of the road.
We only have signs
Didn't take-
where our fencing is. We have signs on the edge of our symbolic fencing that we put on that said, "Do not enter piping plover habitat."
This one was, your fence was right to the edge of Road F, and the sign was right in front of Road F, facing in the road.
Does it have our trustee symbol on there, or just?
No, I
None of
didn't
it
see the
does.
trustee symbol.
There's no
on it.
trustee symbols on anything. And I'm going back to my original question. It's not a law, okay? It's a suggestion, it's a whatever. This does not have the force of law. You're not mandated, excuse me, you're not mandated to do this by any stretch, by no law, by no statute, nothing. So I know the trustees have had an exemplary program on piping plovers for hatching and fledging, outstanding. It seems as if right now, the plovers have taken priority over our access. I mean, the picnic area, as we all know, this is what this is about. We've gotten shut out of it the last couple of years. The way it is right now, there's a little welcome mat on one side next to our access point. If something nests there, we're done. To the east side, where there weren't any nests, right next to the road, the fence runs from there almost to Road D. I didn't drive the whole way because I couldn't get all the way through. So it seems as if, instead of going by the letter of the law,
I think,
just say, please take it the right way. The board as a whole, or this gentleman over here, whatever his position is, taking it upon himself to block off large swatches of the area, put out the welcome mat for the plovers.
okay, so I
Whereas
think.
that's causing a hardship.
I hear you, but I think what needs to happen at this point in time, just in the interest of taking into consideration the sensitivities, and there are many surrounding this, because you mentioned the picnic area and public access, and, then there's the board working with, U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the state DEC on maintaining the integrity of the program so that we balance that out. I think what we need to do is now, this is up and you brought this to our attention, it is a delicate balancing act between the public's access and between the guidelines that they set forth. I think what we need to do is, the board, we need to take a look at this and make sure that we are checking the boxes of all of the above, and it hasn't gone beyond, but we still need to maintain the integrity in the program.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't want
No,
to
no,
cut you off.
please, Scott, go.
No, but I'm just saying, because we're just going to go round and round, I think what we need to do now is physically get out there on the beach, take a look at this and see, on the historical side, where we're at with the sensitivities that we're going to be against and maintain the integrity, so, and then get back with you on this.
Yep.
We should do.
I have a question. On the historical side, if there's birds last summer or the summer before, if the summer before counts as historical?
Yes, technically it does, but I only do from last summer.
Only from
And you can look at our maps from
Okay, that's
last year. It's publicly accessed on our website, exactly where those nests were.
Yeah.
And that's where we're putting,
We-
some areas we couldn't. Some areas I avoided because there was no room for access.
Right.
It was so eroded that we couldn't put fencing there because it would block the access. We make that call out in the field when we're
Right.
putting it up.
Right, and then I think, right now, I think the trustees could take a look at that to make sure that there is the balance, that there's the integrity in the program, and then there's also the considerations for the other user groups that want to also access it. So I think we're going to have to get on the beach and take another look at this, just to make sure.
And one thing to go off the guidelines, yes, it might say a guideline, but it is to protect the trustees and protect the access, because if we don't put the fencing up and a plover gets run over, a plover nest gets run over, then the trustees are liable as well as everybody that's driving on the beach too. So it's, it's a balancing act.
James, you're right, it's a federal unfunded mandate.
The law actually states the individual is responsible. $25,000 fine for the individual, not holding the board responsible.
Right. I believe the
Well, if you wanna
responsibility.
have beach driving,
Oh, I-
we have to do this.
I understand
Right.
that.
We've taken this burden on for many, many years, long before I was on this board.
Oh, yeah.
And there was another individual in charge of it. We took it away from him, so to maintain the integrity of our beach driving.
Oh, I agree.
And fortunately and unfortunately, there's two ways of looking at this. We have a very successful program which allows more birds to hatch and fledge, and they come back in bigger numbers. But these numbers are basically go from New Jersey all the way up to Cape Cod. So we have a great program here. We have great recruitment, but we're getting punished for an area down in Jersey where they basically have taken their beaches and put them with bluestone and got rid of their habitat.
Right. We fully understand that, when you get into the heart of the program, it's incumbent upon the landowners and the regulatory authorities that issue permits. And we felt that this, the trustees holding the historic easement, and, being defenders of public access and the recreation, of surf casting and everything else that we like to do, that to maintain the integrity of the program and the proper balance, it was best us doing this. That being said, this stuff just went in. There may be adjustments that could happen within guidelines that better balance, maybe not. We'll have to take a look at this, but we are sensitive to exactly what you're saying, 100%.
Another quick question, the incidental take permit?
Heavy lift,
We're
it could
still-
happen.
we're
We're
still-
still working on that, but it's,
We're
Yeah.
still having meetings and
Yeah.
consultations. We had the well, Ann, you could speak to that. We're having another meeting coming up.
And is that for a specific area, like so many linear feet? Perhaps the incidental take permit could be applied to the picnic area,
Absolutely.
going forward with
We're
that.
probably looking from Shinnecock Inlet all the way east to Mecox. That would be the area that we would need to take under our belt to do, and then East Hampton wants to do something down there. So we're doing like a regional approach to this.
Excellent.
It was suggested to us that we do a regional approach. We've had multiple meetings now with many of the stakeholders involved. It's kind of complicated. It hasn't been done before in New York or on Long Island, and it's expensive too, so we're working our way through, but that's our end goal, is to just be able to create some balance. The one place it has been done successfully before is on Cape Cod. That was done at the state level, though, but we contacted the consultant who was successful there, and that's who we've been working with.
Excellent.
So it's a delicate dance, but like with everything, but we're on that.
Excellent.
We
Thank
had
you
a
for
little
that.
stumble with it, but we're moving forward.
yeah, it's a lot.
One other thing I'd like to say, we could be like from Shinnecock Inlet to basically the Tiana, and have the county come in and just do what the county does, close all the access points off, and then you can't go on the beach. We have James, we have his crew, actively monitoring these areas.
Yeah, we appreciate
So it does give us some flexibility. I feel you guys' pain initially, but once the birds establish where they are,
Yeah, we
we
can adjust.
go down, he goes down the beach on a daily or something on a daily basis to make it flexible so we can work within this. Open up an area, have a shuttle. We were trying to be creative here.
You maintain integrity of the program. and
Not
you get the
knocking any of
flexibility.
that by any stretch.
It's a
Just
real,
want
it's
us
a
to
lot.
be
I mean,
Productive.
It's still gonna jam us up at Mecox, so we got our permit for
Yeah.
Mecox, but we still have to account for those birds over there. So if there's a bird within the zone and we have to open it, we're still gonna have to have a huddle with everybody. Now, we know the drill, it shouldn't be an issue, because we all know the drill, but still, you know what I mean, even there, it's one more step, so.
It's an exercise we have to go through every time.
Elaborate.
But, at least our board is willing to do that. I mean, you guys come to us with issues. I mean, we monitor the bay and the ocean beaches. It's a lot. And they're out there on a daily basis checking, which I think is really important, because if birds don't show up in the picnic area, and we know that, well, then that'll be open for you guys for the
Predictive
summer.
fencing is then
Yeah.
That-
Where was the sign you said?
Right at the end of Road F.
Road F?
Yeah,
Was it
helicopter
orange?
pad the road.
Was it like a store board or?
It was a sign that says, "Do not enter."
If you guys are down there and could take a picture of it and shoot it
Yeah.
to us, yeah, that'd be great, or we will
That'd be
as
great.
well.
You're saying that all your signs have
They're
the
white.
trustee
Well,
logo on
it has the DEC, either has DEC or U.S. Fish and Wildlife on it.
They're
They
the
give us
small
signs.
white ones.
And it shouldn't be right in the middle of the road, it should be on.
Well, it wasn't quite in the middle, it was like
fencing.
Yeah,
off your,
Take a picture of it.
so I had to like actually drive.
Ed,
yeah, that's,
any update on North
Past
Sea Dredging?
this weekend or Friday,
Yeah,
or before Friday?
Friday.
Not until we see the
31st,
plover
it's like
show
drove
up.
on, it was like, what just happened? Especially the tracks that
Which he's gonna
freshly
ask.
installed and all that.
Everybody
You
trained
can
Mecox
Nice that
now
it
when
was
you got a
reduced
chance.
to the one.
It has all to
Well,
do with the
that's,
plover.
that's what I'm thinking, maybe it was reduced, but.
Okay.
I
I was just,
Since then, I don't know
That was my
if it's-
concern, is that you couldn't even walk past it. The water was coming up and you couldn't even walk down the beach.
And again, like I said, with the erosion, let us know if there is an area that it washed away and we'll pick it up.
and the other thing to look at is,
Yeah, I can't be down there every day in every single section, so.
I understand.
it's
Not
new
busting
moon
your chops.
right now, so
Yeah,
the tides
last
are higher,
Friday. Oh, so
right?
the low
That-
really tall.
Right?
Yep.
So that's something to take into consideration. The
Yeah.
other thing is, this is called predictive fencing, so it has to be up for a bit, and then we can wind it back once we start to see that there are plovers showing up. So I know
And there-
it's onerous, and it's not, but it's trying to create balance so that, as we're saying, we can still drive on the beach.
Right, yeah, understood the predictive fencing, I mean,
And there are plovers here already, and I've seen them already showing courtship.
yeah, the predictive fencing was a new one on me. It's almost like, okay, well, here you go.
Even before April
Come on
1st,
in
they've been
for
here.
the birds, and it was
Because
like,
I
right,
walk the beach quite often.
If they
and I
showed
haven't
up
seen one
everywhere
yet.
else-
Well, down
They're
there
gonna come with
specifically, I
brothers.
haven't seen them
It'd be no
there,
issue
down there
with
yet, but
anybody.
I've seen them in other places
I have birds in
being,
there, not that I'm right back.
like, showing courtship, showing mating signs already, and it wasn't even April 1st yet, so it's not like they're not here, they are here,
But that's actually a good thing.
yeah.
They're
didn't get
here
out.
earlier than they're gone
Let them be
earlier.
successful in that.
That, I mean, if you want to look at it like that, you may not look at it like
Soon as
that,
they-
but,
Right.
that's from our point of
Exactly.
view.
Get them in and get them out.
What is your guidelines from the toe of the dune, out from the toe of the dune of your fencing? Is there a guideline that you
Yeah, how many feet?
give them so many feet?
What I try to do is leave enough space for vehicle passage until we have to expand it. So vehicles back and forth and be able to drive around. And that's why some areas, if you look at our maps, some areas don't even have fencing because there was only one lane or two lanes to be able to get through. And if I put fencing there, then you wouldn't be able to get through.
Theoretically, if there was a 50-yard beach, you would stick it, you would fence it that far off and just to leave some vehicle access?
I would leave vehicle access, and then what happens is when the beach gets bigger, throughout the spring and summer, beaches can get bigger, less storms. Then it depends on the nest. So you're supposed to do 50 meters from the nest so that when vehicles or people walk, the birds don't get scared off the nest. If they're off the nest for more than 15 minutes, then they could lose the nest when they're incubating.
So that's, I believe it's 50 meters. I have to double check in the guidelines, but.
James works hard at it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
It is.
I
It's a tough- He does. He works hard. It's a delicate balancing
There's no
act.
doubt.
It really
It
is.
just seemed like there was a lot of
Area shut down.
areas shut down from it.
I mean, if you look at all the area that we have from all the nests, especially in that area, I think from Road F to Dune Beach, there was 4 or 5 successful nests, and then 2 right in the picnic area between G and F, and then you had one also in the county. It was very productive. I can't. I don't know what.
That's what we're
do at
trying to
that point.
encourage, productivity.
We're trying to
You
get
had-
that balance so it's
Right.
productive for everybody. It's,
I know.
Productive over here.
plus the resources, critical, yeah.
We're just coming in and concerned.
I appreciate you do. I'm glad
Thank
you
you guys
did.
so much, and you had to
Glad
sit
you
through a long meeting,
Yeah,
so we really appreciate you.
I'm glad you come in.
waiting,
It's always better to have a conversation than.
Yeah,
than
for sure.
No, it's
there,
fabulous.
Back and forth.
Come in anytime.
Yeah.
Trustee
anytime.
Pell did ask me about North Sea Harbor. We're waiting on the, basically the county and the, to work with the Army Corps and the DEC on a window, and then we have to make sure that there's no plovers east of Tap Point.
Okay.
So it's, we're wait, it's a wait and see.
You can walk across it now on low tide. It's pretty
I
sketchy.
already know, and
Okay.
I got them, I think I have a priority 1 on the county dredge list.
Appreciate that.
Well, we
Thank
do.
you. Thanks for your time
After
again.
a lot
on
of
that one.
calls.
Understood.
So, yes.
Thank you.
There's a really tight dredge window. Did you, explain that?
Yeah, well, it's 2 dredge windows, and they have to match the Army Corps, and the Fish and Wildlife and the DEC have to match it up to get a.
Yeah.
No,
So
we do it,
it's
we've done it every year.
And the fresh pond people want their stuff dredged too.
That's not happening this year.
All right.
So
so
thank
much.
you
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Once at a time.
Yeah.
Next up.
Thanks for taking care of that,
If you have any questions, feel free to call.
One problem at a time,
Public here
Jay.
that wants to speak in public portion. This is the time.
Hey,
Hello.
Tiffany.
Hello,
Sign in, state your name for the record.
Tiffany Gavin, 53 Cliff Drive. After doing this for years, it is abundantly clear that this situation at 65 Cliff would never have happened had you guys been in front of this. Had 65 Cliff hired these 2 guys that presented the bulkhead and how to make land not erode, this would not have happened. But we have erosion. We have no impetus for these people to clean up their problem. It is confirmed that they have not submitted the bulkhead approval to the
Application?
DEC. Not to the DEC.
No.
DEC does not have it.
No, we already did.
So
Yeah.
they are using you guys, saying, well, we're going to do the application for the bulkhead. So that's going to, you're not going to put violations on them because they did pull that.
Well, we asked, basically, we did, there's a whole series of steps as you've watched.
Right.
What happened into the point where we got turned back. I'm not in correspondence, I believe Scott has been.
Last week.
It's a phone call to whoever Andrew is, Andrew Walker, I don't know, who's the,
No,
Rob
I,
Marsh.
you know, I, look,
Rob
I know
Marsh.
where it's at.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, she's correct, and it's incumbent upon that property owner to make the next steps necessary to remedy the problem on their property there. That's what they have to do. They hired people to guide them through that. They have to authorize them to continue on in the process. So the question is, what is going to compel them to do that? Right? So that's the big question. There has to be, you would think that from a matter of common sense, if you have a property that you want to sell for millions and millions of dollars, and you have a very publicly known erosion problem on that property, that you would want to address it. It's just common sense.
Which I think they're in short supply of.
Well, I can't comment on that further than I already have, and this board has issued a permit. This board has stated that we would be flexible modifications were necessary for, for them on the
Right.
permit we issued. But we're not the only regulatory authority that has to issue a permit on this. So they have to get the other folks, like the New York State DEC, they have to get their approval on a project, and we'd be more than happy, as we have come to the table, so that there's a synergy, so that it works for the community, the environment, the applicant. So we've done everything we can, this board, and beyond. So they have to,
But
and
they're
it's
not-
not so much, they have to take that next step.
And what if they don't? Your property is damaged, our properties are harmed, we have no water canal to speak of.
I guess we'd
So
have to
their
sue them.
actions, right,
We'd
I
have
think
to
that's what
sue
we,
them civilly.
let's sue them. Let's join in a lawsuit together and sue them. Because their actions put us here, and now their inaction is keeping us here.
This board is not gonna sit here and have a conversation about litigation. We're not gonna do it. We just, that's not our policy to do that. We're not gonna talk about that.
Mitigate issues.
We're not gonna talk, we can't.
So how do we mitigate the issue?
They're gonna have to, they're gonna have to, at this point in time, they're gonna have to,
This is summer 3.
right.
It's 1 year, sir, since
know-
you stood on that landslide with the DEC and their attorney.
I've had conversations with this New York State DEC relative to this and their counsel, and I think everybody is in concurrence that there's solutions here. It's very simple. They need to authorize their representatives to move forward in the process and work with everybody so that everyone can achieve what they can achieve. Now, in all fairness, I spoke to them, it was last week, I think. It was early last week. Maybe it was 10 days ago. No one has reached back to me as of yet. That was all the week, and then today's a Monday, and anyone that tries to reach me today is obviously not getting me because I'm here. So, in the interest of fairness, I would give this a little bit more time because it sounded to me like there were some good plans that could happen that would work out for the trustees, would work out for the neighbors, would work out for the state DEC, and I think would work out very good for the applicant. They just need to take that action. Again, it's a very public erosion problem on a property that is clearly listed for sale for millions of dollars. It would be making sense to remedy the problem. It has open permits, right? We have an open permit. I don't understand why, but I'm not driving that bus, I'm driving this bus, and I think we've done a good job at getting things to the point where we
You
did.
guys have been fantastic. It just seems that
Right.
they're very calculated in their plan. They orchestrated this trade deal with Marty Shea. They caused this problem, and now we sit here 3
Right.
years later.
I get it. I know that you have agent and you have counsel, and, they're gonna probably have to better advise you or best advise you on what your next steps are, and that's what I would advise you to do, because we're not at liberty, at this venue to have those conversations, but you should probably seek that counsel, from those folks.
So, just from an emotional side to this, my neighbors and I have spent $40,000 to date speaking with people, learning what happened in this area. Aram has taught us so much. It was completely a man-made problem. So now we're going to have to sue someone, and we have to go into a lawsuit with even more money spent for these people that caused something that was just purely, is it ignorance, is it
Neglect.
greed? Sorry?
Neglect.
Neglect, it's just,
Look, again, it's unfortunate. I generally always try and resolve issues from a diplomatic standpoint, common sense, reasonable, okay?
they're
But-
developers, Mr. Horowitz. With a precedent is being set. This is precedent setting. That developers, if they tap on the right shoulders and make the right trades, and if they have something on their property that Marty Shea hates, they'll make a deal. The trade deals happen.
Right.
This is why it happened. And that they're looking at this, what happened here, and there are two types of people that use the laws to follow them, or people that use the laws to find the loopholes. And that's what Marty Shea did. He put us in this problem with this developer who was orchestrating to get this pool permit, and now the victims, we didn't know this was even happening. Nobody told us. There was no public hearing. Marty Shea denied it twice. He boasts about creating a new environment without telling the people that live in that environment. I know you guys are doing it to the point of what you can do, but I just don't understand.
We
Can
understand
I
your
interrupt?
frustration.
Yes.
Sure, you can.
Hey, Mark, could we, what happened to the violation, what we did issue to them, not to her, but to the property
65.
owners, 65, and can we issue another violation
Well,
to make them motivated?
Before I answer that, can someone just give me a Reader's Digest version?
Well, that's gonna be,
Sounds like
that's.
So there was a bulk.
I know almost.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. In 2019, a bulkhead was illegally removed. Marty Shea offered a deal that said to the developers who wanted the installation of a pool within 100 feet of wetlands, less than 100 feet of wetlands. He offered two options to get that permit approved. From remove your bulkhead, it was a functional bulkhead issued and permitted by the trustees in 1966.
Never asked us, never notified us.
No permits, it was just removed on October 24th, 2019. Just pulled out. What happened after, the bulkhead was 3 feet high, and the property just continues to erode into the mouth of a navigable tidal water canal. Over time, what has become the erosion issue, it's now meeting the shoal across the way, pinching off water flow. So we lost navigation of the canal, and we lost low tide water flow. We still have high tide, but over time, we're going to lose that. No permits. So what we're trying to do is have them reclaim the material that has fallen off their property and put the bulkhead back in place to contain it. So where the canal is, it's on Sag Harbor Cove. So when the water comes in high tide, it crashes on that shoreline. I think, Mr. Warner, you said the word. So when it crashes in and then it pulls back out.
Well, I mean, the southwesterly wind will make a wave action. It'll eat it out, and basically the
funnels up
erosion
in the-
process is creeping into the canal. It was a dredged canal, so the majority of the canal that is exposed from this landslide is actually all sand now, and it's no longer navigable. So as the time goes by, that shoal slowly creeps back into the canal and fills in what would be a place where they could moor a boat on their tie a boat up and basically paddle a kayak in and out. At low tide, there's zero water there.
Zero water.
Zero, I mean, it's gotten to the point now where,
There used to be boats up in there.
and the problem is, in the summertime, when you got a very hot weather and this situation, it's going to cause an algae bloom, and it's going to smell almost noxious from all the sediment decomposing in there. So without the natural water flow that was there for 60 years plus, it's going to be it's going to be a bigger environmental issue than just sand filling in a channel. It's going to be mosquitoes and
Right.
smell, and very it's not going to be a good neighborhood, because there's a place in Shinnecock Bay by Crab Road across from the Hampton Maid. This similar situation happened. It was a dug canal. Over time, the mouth of it filled in, and every high tide, it floods with salt water. Some of the fish and crabs get in there, and there's no tidal exchange after full or new moon, and everything dies in there, and it smells
Which we've
nauseous.
already started experiencing, like I pointed out last year. We have like crabs that just get caught up
Yeah.
on the muck. So what Mr. Warner is saying, so when the water's pushing, so we're getting closed in from two sides. So there's no egress out. It's like a dead end canal. So it's being pushed in, the sediment and muck is just sitting there. So now it's like creeping toward the south. So it's in the north, it's creeping towards the south, and then the shoal and the landslide has blocked the water on that side. So we're being closed in. And against Blue Book and codes and procedures of the DEC, stopping navigation and stopping tidal flow is against the law.
James, can you pull that up on the GIS map?
That's a good idea.
There's been
We can
good
show 'em.
communication among our board, the state, federal,
Yeah, we've-
everybody. It's just that the applicants have to come to the table. Everyone's willing to work to,
But they're very calculated in how they've navigated through this. They knew what they wanted, and they were advised how to get it. So they took advantage. Again, you look at the laws two ways. You follow them, or you loophole them. They loopholed it.
We can, we can help to educate you, and it's been, there's fair documentation with this.
So
I
the
know, it's a
bulkheads
record.
illegally removed in
So-
2019. What's the open permit for?
we issued a permit
To replace.
the bulkhead.
What they took out without a permit.
But they can't do that project until the state issues their
Mark,
permit.
that's the area in question. If you look to the north of that dredged canal, it's all deep water, and you can see where it's all filled in where the. you
That's
can
all
see
landslide.
It's all the material that came from behind the bulkhead.
Right. They saying we're not going to do this until we get sign off from the DEC, and that's
Well,
why we're not doing it.
they have to get a permit for the DEC, so they made application to the DEC.
Right.
But it was not acceptable. They wanted to amend the elevation. I believe the concern from that camp was that what the DEC initially came out wouldn't satisfy the neighbors. They were trying to accommodate both, but they want to handle it as a separate action. They want to handle it, one, as the shoring up of the property, and second, as a dredging.
Right.
So, two actions.
Right.
So there was collaboration there, like, all right, adjust this. It's just there was no follow-through on the collaboration, okay? So I think that, I think the applicant's representatives are fully aware and know how to remedy the
2019.
situation. They just need the authorization
Aerial or
from
like
the
a regular
applicant.
picture or an aerial?
So the question is, what will compel them
Right.
to give their agents the authority to complete the mission on the permitting at the state and then do the project?
Right, and that's
Okay.
out of our jurisdiction, that part of it. But the part that is, and I could look at the permit, so I think our permits, last time I checked on with James, does have conditional language on it. I'm not sure how much impetus it would provide, but if we threatened to revoke the permit, would that do anything?
I don't think
It's not gonna
so.
put
I
anything
don't-
back.
2015?
This is 2008.
It's probably a conversation that we best have,
And it's going into 2021.
not in general meeting,
Yes,
on the
21.
public portion.
Mark,
But
James could put a timeline
2018.
from 18 to 21 here on the
So
property.
right now, we're on 2018 aerial,
The bulkhead is presently there.
and now I'm transferring over to 2021 without the bulkhead.
So the sand just migrated to the north and filled in the
And you
whole.
can see in
You
2018,
can
the
see here,
bulkhead,
Mr. Parrish, pretty clearly as well.
When you're looking at it.
It's unfortunate.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure.
Really, we spent a lot of time on
You
this.
guys have spent, and it wouldn't have happened. Every week I'm here, I learn more and more, and my insides get ripped out every
See,
time.
And this is,
Thank you.
and this is why, when we have,
This was 2016, sir.
this is why when we have applications that are already presenting themselves to have substantial public concern, it's best to err,
Yeah.
let the public say what their concerns are and take it into consideration, which is why I'm very sensitive to that.
So the DEC, they didn't pull a DEC permit. And had they pulled a DEC permit on the front end of this, there it's conditions how it's either like and in kind to replace the bulkhead. There is nothing that says remove the entire bulkhead at one time. There is a lot of conditions, like that gentleman explained earlier. If you're going to remove an 80-foot bulkhead, there are conditions to containing the land. There was nothing done to mitigate that property, which Marty Shea in an analysis reports says this property has a severe slope heading towards the water canal. This is in their
And
FOIL
actually-
findings.
And actually, he went out of his jurisdiction into ours. He has no right to do it.
That's where you get in trouble.
That's where you got in trouble.
It gets more complex, Mark.
Yeah,
It gets
really.
further complex,
I understand.
okay? It's complex on top of complex, and it capitulates itself to be more difficult based on,
Because
as
the
Ms.
conservation
Gavin
board
stated,
doesn't get
changing the
jurisdiction if there's a
environment.
functioning bulkhead there.
Maybe you
When
can,
They
you-
did the
when you-
reversal on December 22nd.
Yeah, but when you, yeah, they,
They reversed, there was a CNR put on the property, Marty flagged it another 30 feet upland.
Which he can do, because there's no
Fine,
bulkhead.
but then puts the pool in less than 75 feet of wetlands.
All right,
So he created the perfect storm. So he knew what he was doing.
Okay.
And then he pulled the permit, or he pulled out the bulkhead, and the pool was put in 2 months after they got the pool.
So maybe you can talk to Sean and Joe and see if we can issue another violation, or what happened to the violation, what we put on it already.
Right.
Because if we issue another violation, that would push them harder, because they have to answer that in court.
well,
Yeah.
let's talk about this.
I would
Okay.
appreciate it, because there's no impetus, there's
No,
something
but
not
let's-
adding up. I
let's-
agree with what you're saying, Mr. Horowitz. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't want to remediate this problem. It's only going to
It's
benefit
common
their
sense, and
property.
it's probably less
Increase the value of the
expensive.
property.
Well,
I think-
violations run with the land, so if he ever tries to sell it, he's gonna have to deal with the
That's-
violation.
That's the
That's why we
point,
did it.
that's the point of an open permit as well, and it's like on TV, like it's an erosion problem, so you want to spend millions of dollars and buy yourself.
6.5 million.
You want to spend 6.5 million to buy into unhappy neighbors, open permits, and an erosion problem. I don't understand that, but hey, it's a free country still.
I
But,
just don't, what my fear is, and I'll leave you with this, their opening picture on the Sotheby's website is the picture of the erosion. So they're not downplaying it like they're playing it like it's not a
You have the beach in
problem.
front of your house.
I just think
not
that,
inland.
I
you know,
don't
for the
want an
non-trained
unsuspecting
eye.
person to come in and buy this problem.
right, for the
That would be terrible.
Right.
Like, how many victims are we gonna have in this?
You know, again, I would refer you back to counsel. You know, I think, you know, that's what you need to speak to your agents that you've hired and your counsel in terms of what it is.
I will do that, and I will continue to do that.
Yeah, and Mark will find out by the end of the week what our
Please,
next
sir.
step
If
is.
you- It's thousands of dollars we're spending, and
Right.
now we're gonna have to spend thousands more with an attorney.
And the remediation will be cheaper than the litigation. So
Yes.
they could fix it faster
It's so
and
much-
less expensive.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Stressful.
pay the company to fix the
Agreed.
problem than the lawyers, but,
And the outcome would be
You know.
better.
And we have reached out to them to try and collaborate,
right.
and they won't reach back to us. We said we could partner up and partner up in this.
And that's all true.
Thank you. We're
That's
not
all
the
true.
enemy. We're trying
And
to be
and
part
this
of this.
board, and this board, in the interest,
Situation better.
it's all true, and this board has done everything it could to try and remedy the environment, remedy the concerns of the neighbors, and remedy the concerns of the applicant themselves. We've done everything that we could, okay?
It might be one last thing. Come on, Mr. Pell. You got something.
I would go to the, see if you could issue another violation.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see where it is in our court.
Yeah.
It's nowhere in your court. No, it was not a summons, it was just a notice of violation.
Notice.
I'm
But
not.
the ongoing
I
issues are
don't-
still pending.
I get it, you,
That's what confuses me. I understand.
it's a further conversation that really, you know, because.
If you could just have it, I'd
needs to be-
appreciate it.
Yeah. You might have to have an executive.
No, it's fine. Like,
But he
you
has to
guys
do
have
some
been
homework.
amazing. This isn't a you problem. I'm just asking if you guys could talk about it a little further, put that violation back, because the ongoing issues have not been remediated.
No, we understand, we hear that loud and clear.
That's my
I think,
exit
I
out.
think there's,
All right.
I think there's a better way. I think there's a better way.
It's been
But-
here since 9:30.
I
It's a
know,
long
you
day.
guys, I don't know
better
how
way.
you do it, honestly. I truly, we appreciate it
I
very
just want to
much.
show you, this is our agenda for today. See how thick that is?
Yeah?
And now I'm going to compare it to what we've accomplished
Yeah,
so
that's
far
it.
today. This is what we've accomplished.
Here's
For the record, it's almost 3:30. This is what we've accomplished.
That's awful. Seriously?
Yeah.
Yes. We have to
We've
approve
got
all the permits.
We've.
And do our
we're only
regular-
on
do the
page- we're only
trustee
through page
business.
one. We still got, we're
Let's rock and
we're
roll.
on page one of a 27 page.
So what I'm hearing is you want me to leave so
Well,
we can get to
I
it?
think we know what we have to do, we just gotta get answers.
Everybody's just collectively saying it.
You gotta do this. Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Stephanie.
Thanks, Tim.
We'll let you know what he
Ma'am.
finds out.
Thank you. You got something too?
New topic, swear to God.
Public
5 minutes.
portion, sit down, sign in. Wait, you've already signed in.
I'll just put a 2X over here. I just asked James to pull up this. So our clients have asked us to pursue a dredging permit for Channel Pond. And the DEC has asked us for a letter from either the trustees or the town, or both, as the underlying property owners.
We are not the town.
Okay.
So
well,
what?
In order to allow us to apply for a permit to
Permit,
dredge.
Okay.
It's pretty much in our name. You're plowing.
Okay.
Is that the way it usually works?
Yeah. Well, so my office will send over a letter of
We can work with.
agent.
Yeah, and I'm very much interested in getting this place dredged out.
It would be
That-
great.
Because it was supposed to be done before.
Yeah.
We gave a permit. Aaron, there's
Now,
already.
does the DEC recognize the trustees have the,
Well, I just got an email from Bill while I was sitting here, and I haven't seen the correspondence.
There
but
was
I'll
a
get
permit
back
that
to
we had given to the property owner, so,
He
for
never
this
spoke.
project.
He
Okay.
never did.
Yeah.
He never did it, so
Okay.
it's in our office, so you might want
Oh,
to.
so I'll foil that.
Yeah,
Well,
there
for
you
that, and then we already went through this process.
Okay.
go. There you go.
All right, terrific. All right, well, good. See,
all you
it
got?
was 5 minutes. I told you.
Less than 5 even.
For once.
Thank
All right,
you.
Scott.
Thank you.
What property was he talking?
All right, so we're going to move on here.
Excuse me one second.
You mind if we move on?
Go ahead.
No.
You
Okay.
okay? Lisa, you have what you need?
Yep, I got it.
Are you ready?
Phil, help me. I'm ready.
All right, so we've got some applications for permits here. I have one, 2022-93. It's the application of Kevin M. Generich, 3 Barracuda Road, East Quogue. First, let me say the Board of Trustee hereby waives the public hearing on the following applications because it's been determined that the following projects do not raise a significant degree of public interest or public input needed to aid in the decision-making process. Kevin Generich, 2022-93, tax map 900, 362-3-2. We fully vetted this at work
Second.
session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
I
You
have trustee-
seconded, Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
I have trustee resolution 2022-94. It's the application of Gina Masha, 17 Tarpon Road, East Quogue, New York, tax map 900, 362-4-9. Again, we went through this, fully meets Blue Book regulations at this point in time. I recommend its approval.
I'll give you a second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I got trustee resolution 2022-95. It's a modification and first renewal permit GP 000322, paid John Paganucci at 9 Washington Drive, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-259-2-43.22. Recommend its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Got trustee resolution 2022-96, application of Shanias 23 Marlin Road, East Quogue, New York, tax map 900-384-3-12. Recommend its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Got trustee resolution 2022-107. This is, no, we're not going to pass this one. I think this one was the public hearing that we had,
Yeah.
and we are waiting a 14-day comment period.
So we're going to table this one?
Table that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, trustee Powell.
Get caught up here. Page 6.
6, Billy.
Trustee Resolution 2022-97, application Kenneth E. DeLausa, 260 Tad Point Road, North Sea, tax map number 900-59-1-27, body of water, North Sea Harbor.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Trustee Resolution 2022-98. This is a modified of the first permit, GP 003003, Christopher Potter, 26 Lands and Lane, Tuckahoe, tax map 0900-155-2-5, body of water, Cold Spring Pond, man-made canal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Application for 361 Beach Lane Road LLC, 361 Beach Road, Hampton Bays, New York, Suffolk County, tax map 900-364-1-3, body of water, Shinnecock Bay East. We worked on this on work session. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Powell, all in favor?
Aye.
Application for Phil Abramowitz, 29 Canoe Place Road, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-266-4-14, body of water Shinnecock Bay East. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Welker, all in favor?
Aye. Application for Brent Simon, 1 Peconic Road, Hampton Bays, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-231-3-18.2, body of water Shinnecock Bay East. We worked on this in work session. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye. Suffolk, renewal application, first one for Janice Arcaro, GP 0002924, 8 Roland Court, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900, 324-3-4, body of water Shinnecock Bay.
Second.
All in favor?
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor?
The next one,
The next one's on hold.
right. So we have to-
Yes.
Are you going to table that?
Next one is application for 7 Bayberry Lane LLC, 7 Bayberry Cove Lanes, Shinnecock Hills, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-272-1-38.4, body of water Middle Pond and Honey Pot Pond. We're going to table this until our next meeting. I believe that is April 18th.
You already did all this. for
Okay,
that one.
all right,
Yeah.
so we're good then?
Right, you
Yep.
had that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Trustee Resolution 2022-104, application of Wayward Partners LLC, 28 Long Point Road, Village of Sag Harbor, Suffolk County Tax Map 903-4-1-39.4, body of water Morris Cove off of Upper Sag Harbor Cove. We discussed this extensively at work session. I'd like a second.
Second.
Second, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-105, first final renewal for the application of NTS Mecox LLC, permit number PHR 00002, 74 Point Mecox Lane, Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-134-1-41.2, body of water Swan Creek. I'd like to recommend the approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded?
Trustee Pell.
Thank you.
Trustee Resolution 2022-106, it's an application of LTK Island Real Estate LLC, 20 Cricket Path, Remsenburg, Spionk, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-380-1-34.3, body of water Seatuck Cove.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
The next one,
We already
The next one, we
did.
killed it, that's done.
we
It's
already
done.
did.
Yep.
Yeah, we killed that.
Where does it continue? Page 17.
Goes to page 17, and it's trustee Pell.
Trustee Resolution 2022-109. This is authorize the payment of a judgment entered against the trustees in the matter of trustee versus the Village of Quogue.
I'll second that, Billy.
Seconded by trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-110, resolution authorizing the president to sign a letter of authorization granting permission to engage in a Ligony Brook stream cleanout, but with the Friends of Long Pond Greenbelt.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-111, resolution authorizing the sign of a letter authorizing for the East End Suffolk Ducks Unlimited for Great East End cleanup.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next resolution we have to pull, 2022-112, and unfortunately, we're not going to get that Ford F-150 because apparently somebody beat us to it. This is a problem. We tried. We thought we had a truck. We don't have a truck. We're still looking for a truck. Supply chain issues. We're trying hard there, James. We thought we had it. Somebody else got it. This is a problem, countrywide supply chain issues in getting things. So
I did get an email from John McDonald. He is working on looking for another.
we appreciate that, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to get on the phone as well, but Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Ponder's next resolution, right? What do we
Yes.
got here?
Trustee Resolution 2022-113. This is a public hearing to adopt notice of a public hearing for amendment of the rule and regulation for management and product of the town's water, the Blue Book. Consider amendment in the management and protection of the water of the town of Southampton, Article 5, Section 38, waterfowl.
It's to set the public hearing for Monday, May 9th.
May 9th.
2022. It's a night meeting at 6 PM here at Southampton Town Hall.
Yes, we did it at night, so a lot of the hunters and the people can come and.
Second.
to-
Seconded by Trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-114, notice of public hearing for license agreement between the trustees and Barton and Gray Mariners Club.
This is to
Second.
set the public
Set the
hearing.
public hearing, I'm looking to see where it is, yeah.
April 18th, the next page.
Yeah, it's on April 18th. So we're going to be setting a public hearing.
There it is.
uh,
set
for-
it.
Go ahead.
We're going to set the public hearing on April 18th, 2022 at 1 PM at the Southampton Town Hall, 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, for Barton and Gray Mariners Club to use the aforementioned docks and ramps and the for the aforementioned reasons. Basically, they want to enter into a license agreement, so we're going to
Have a public hearing.
have a public hearing.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-115, notice of setting of a public hearing for a license agreement between the Board of Trustees and Kamadeva Yoga LLC. Trustees are looking to receive comments from members of the public regarding a proposed licensing agreement for the purpose of allowing Jessica Bellafato, founding and sole member of Kamadeva LLC, to use Circle Beach and its waters for the purpose of conducting private and small group paddleboard classes, lessons, tours, and half-day camps from May to September 2022 during the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The public hearing will be held here at Town Hall, April 18th at the 1 p.m. meeting. I'd like a second.
Second.
Second, Trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-116. This is the number 5 warrant of 2022 for the trustees of a total of $27,468.33. Call ahead is $100. Safe Harbor publication is $91.73. H&L contractor is $19,150. That's for opening Mecox and Sag. Home Depot Credit Service, $533.35. InterScience is $1,845.40. Joseph Lavada is $3,825. Riverhead Bowling Supply, $932.25. And W.B. Mason, $990.60.
Hold on a second. What GL code did this 19150 come out of?
No, that one too, that 19150 was not for Mecox and Sag, that is for Fresh Pond
Fresh Pond.
and Far Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mistake.
Yeah,
was gonna
anything
say-
Mecox and Sag goes to
That goes to CPF?
CPF,
Yes, I was
yeah.
going to say, yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Just wanted to make sure.
Good thing you're on the ball.
Okay.
Fresh Pond and Far Pond.
Yeah,
So
that,
we moved all the sand.
Well, Far Pond, we used Chesterfield.
yeah, so that shouldn't be.
All right, let me,
Let's
Yeah,
not pass this
I
resolution.
need clarification.
Or
on
was
this.
that part of Carter? We took care of Carter.
I can look,
Maybe?
right here.
What's that?
Maybe it was.
I think it was Carter
I think
Creek.
it was Carter.
Carter Creek.
I'm sorry, I believe it was Carter Creek,
Do-
but I'll look right now.
Can you look?
Yep,
Do you
Yeah,
mind,
that's
Lisa?
important.
nope, I
Let's
don't
look
mind.
before we pass.
No,
Yeah,
I
because
know.
I'm pretty sure it was Carter Creek.
It
because
I'm
would only
pretty sure
make
it
sense
was
if it was
too.
Carter.
Yeah, because that's a lot of money.
Yes.
Yes,
the only one
I
that
know,
comes on.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, if you don't mind double
I'm
checking.
absolutely positively sure it was Carter Creek.
You're absolutely positively?
Because we're fortunate
Fresh
that
Pond, we didn't-
Mecox
We could always,
and Sag are,
we could always
No, well,
amend it.
she gonna
If you
check.
can't find it,
Yeah,
we can
Lisa
amend
check.
this so that other people get paid.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, this is the last one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Can't go home until we do this.
All right, I'm looking.
In regards to that truck, I was able to get a pool vehicle for long-term use
Thanks.
from them, so I was able to sign it out for long-term, so I don't have to go down there every day and sign it out.
Long-term means we're not giving it back.
It's just a sedan, so
Sedan.
we haven't been
It's
able
not
to
gonna
put
be
any.
good on the beach.
No, it's not good on the beach, and we haven't been able to put any of the equipment in, so we're putting all our equipment in the truck and taking that as well,
Do
so.
you have a trailer you can tow behind the sedan?
I thought.
But.
I thought they had a gator that they
Trying
were
to get
gonna-
those trucks.
We were talking about getting
I
it.
thought they had a gator that,
The problem is you have to trailer the gator
We find someplace to park
where
it.
you're going, you know? I don't think the gator
Buy a
would be
gator.
beneficial.
doesn't sound, that's,
We'd have to talk with Parks and Rec. I mean, they have sheds at many of the,
Would it work, any of the Parks and Rec locations? He doesn't think it would work.
I don't think so, because it's such a long, I mean, we go to Rogers Beach all the way to town line.
if we had one that was designated for one area and one that was designated for another area, it's just a thought. It would help us out, like if we had one that was stored at Mecox.
Right.
that
I
could
mean, at
go
this point, all
from
we
Mecox
need it
to
for
town
is to
line.
Yeah.
get back to the vehicle. Because what we
Saves
do is we leapfrog once the crew is ready, and they drop someone off and then drive here
And they
and go back
hop.
and forth.
All right.
At this point, we're pretty much done with the pre-fencing,
Right.
so it's just a matter, now we're monitoring,
Right.
so,
So,
yeah.
while she's looking, why don't you give us an update on something? Because I know you got an update on something.
Mecox and Sag?
Yeah.
Okay. Both of them were, Mecox was dug on Monday, March 28th, and both Mecox and Sag were opened on Tuesday, March 29th. Despite Mother Nature's best attempts at trying to close them, they both remain open and have both dropped significantly in the past week, so we are very grateful.
Good, thank you. Thank you for the update. I will give you an update on Bay Avenue and East Quogue. Our pier project is progressing very, very nicely.
oh, good.
Take a ride down there. That should be done way
Ready?
ahead of the season.
Oh, that would be good.
Mark's got a little work to do, but it's something else on that. But the project itself is going really nicely. What do you think, Lisa?
We gotta go somewhere else, because it just doesn't, not bringing up
I gotta
my
go somewhere else,
folder.
too.
So,
I gotta go to the pizzeria.
Let's see, what else can we do? Updates?
I am absolutely positive, because I had to send
Well,
it back
we
to
got-
them
let's-
to
listen.
do a.
You positive?
I am positive it
Okay,
was
so
Carter Creek.
Trustee Pell?
I'm
positive it's
gonna
Carter
look
Creek?
right now, but go ahead and do what you do.
Okay, hey, have a second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Trustee Edward Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, that's a wrap on the agenda and the updates. And we were going to have, I don't know if we still need the executive sessions or anything more that the board would like to ask. We're not having it for the initial, but if there's something else that needs to be discussed, I'd be more than happy to continue to have the executive session, adjourn this meeting and go into that. It's up to you, my fellow board members, on what you think you need to do. I mean, it is been, it's 3:45 now. Looking for any
I
information.
think I'm good.
You're good?
Good.
Good?
Wrap.
Wrap?
I'm good.
It's a wrap? It's a wrap?
How about Mark?
Mark?
He hasn't neglected down there.
No,
Mark
yeah,
has one
I'm
thing.
fine. I did, and maybe we could discuss it very briefly at executive session or sometime between now and next time. I just was curious, did all the board members get the Twomey Latham letter regarding the easement,
Let's go on executive session.
drainage easement on property of Michael Sonnenfeld?
You want to discuss that in executive session for a little bit here?
Oh, I just want to know if everyone.
I did see an email, but we didn't obviously,
Aware of it. Okay.
we didn't
Let's
just
go on
look at it.
executive session for 5 minutes.
All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting and go into executive session.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Pell. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned, going to exec.